Chapter 84. The Invincible King's fist represented Chu Xiang's murderous intent. Chu Fengmian was able to withstand it because of his strength. He was still hiding his true strength. If Chu Fengmian's strength had been slightly weaker, like that of a true 5th-level body, refining realm spirit master, the Invincible King's fist would have been enough to kill him. Chu Xiang had really intended to use this opportunity to kill Chu Fengmian. Now that Chu Xiang wanted to escape, Chu Fengmian would not give him the chance. "Fight!" Chu Fengmian said in a low voice. His body suddenly moved, and he chased after Chu Xiang. In terms of speed, Chu Fengmian was much faster than Chu Xiang. Bang! All of a sudden, he sent another fist rumbling toward Chu Banj. Chu Xiang's two fists met the attack. The powerful force caused Chu Xiang's hands to break. "I admit defeat." Before Chu Xiang could speak, Chu Fengmian's second fist fell. How could it be so easy to admit defeat? Chu Xiang had wanted to kill Chu Fengmian, and Chu Fengmian had wanted to kill him as well. Chu Beiji had to die. Another punch was thrown out. The power of this fist was much stronger than the previous one. The bloodline of the primordial battle dragon had always been stronger when encountering a strong opponent. The more they fought, the stronger they became. Every fist Chu Fengmian threw was much stronger than the previous one. At the same time, Chu Xiang's strength was almost at its limit. The Invincible King's fist had drained more than half of his spiritual power, making it impossible for him to strike back at Chu Fengmian. How terrifying! Is Chu Fengmian's spiritual power limitless? Some warriors exclaimed in shock when they saw Chu Fengmian's every fist. Ordinary warriors, like Chu Xiang, would use up their spiritual power. After a few punches, their spiritual power would be exhausted, and their strength would weaken. Everyone thought that Chu Fengmian had used all of his strength and consumed a lot of spiritual power to resist the power of the punch just now. But now, each of Chu Fengmian's punches contained such terrifying power. His power didn't decrease because of the consumption of spiritual power. On the contrary, Chu Fengmian's power grew stronger as he fought. Chu Fengmian's spiritual energy seemed to be boundless. Damn it! How can his spiritual energy be so strong? Could it be that this kid is not a human, but a demonic beast? Chu Banj looked at Chu Fengmian, his heart filled with wild thoughts. Such terrifying strength and abundant spiritual energy was no longer something that a warrior could achieve. It was more like a monster in human form. However, in the face of Chu Fengmian's punch, he could only block it. Boom! The punch even caused a huge rumbling sound to be heard. Chu Beiji's body was sent flying back dozens of meters. He barely managed to prop himself up when he almost fell off the stone platform, but his body was already riddled with holes. His skin was broken and blood was flowing out. This was the result of his body being broken when he couldn't withstand the power of the punch. You are indeed worthy of being one of the 4 great geniuses. 4 punches, and you are only slightly injured. I wonder if you can take my 5th punch. Chu Fengmian laughed heartily. His figure moved and charged towards Chu Banj once again. It seemed that Chu Fengmian had no intention of letting Chu Banj go. Does Chu Fengmian have no intention of letting Chu Banj go? Among the crowd, many warriors saw Chu Fengmian's actions and exclaimed. Now, Chu Fengmian's action of chasing after the victory showed that he had no intention of letting Chu Banj go. Sparring had always been about stopping at a certain point. But Chu Fengmian's actions showed that he had no intention of doing so. Is he not afraid of the family Chu's revenge? Chu Banj is the family Chu's genius. If he is injured, the family Chu will go crazy. A warrior said in surprise. The family Chu could be said to be the largest family in Wuxing country. It was even larger than the Cheng family. Since he dared to offend the Cheng family, he might not be afraid of the family Chu. Moreover, Chu Banj's punch just now was clearly aimed at Chu Fengmian's life. Another warrior said, but he shook his head when he saw Chu Fengmian's actions. Although Chu Fengmian was strong, he was still too reckless. Chu Banj represented not only himself, but also the family Chu behind him. The strength of a single person was nothing in front of a truly large family. Not good. If this continues, Chu Banj will die here. A blue-robed man was shocked when he saw Chu Fengyan throw another punch. If Chu Banj really died here, the family Chu would definitely go crazy for revenge. When that happened, as the examiner of the Ark assessment, he would also be implicated by the family Chu. The family Chu was not something a disciple of Wu Sheng Academy, like him, could contend with. "Have mercy!" The blue-robed man hurriedly shouted, but Chu Fengyan's fist had already landed. Bang! With a loud bang, Chu Banj's body was forcefully sent flying. He fell off the stone platform and lay there motionless. Seeing this scene, the blue-robed men all panicked and hurriedly ran over. When they felt Chu Banj's voice and aura, the blue-robed men finally heaved a sigh of relief. Since he was not dead, this matter was not a big deal. For warriors, getting injured in a spar was a common occurrence. As long as he was not dead, the family Chu would not vent his anger on them, even if he was angry. The blue-robed man could not help but look at Chu Fengyan with eyes full of gratitude. If Chu Fengyan had really intended to kill him, Chu Banj would not have been able to survive. Although Chu Banj's ribs were broken and he could only lie paralyzed on the bed, it would be difficult for him to recover without some sacred healing medicine. But this was already giving him face. After all, Chu Banj had wanted to kill Chu Fengyan. Even if Chu Fengyan killed Chu Banj, it would not be too much. Chu Banj had actually been defeated, and in such a miserable way. Looking at Chu Banj lying on the ground, everyone felt a chill in their hearts. 2 of the 4 great geniuses had been defeated by Chu Fengyan. This also meant that Chu Fengyan's strength had reached a terrifying level that surpassed the 4 great geniuses. Chu Fengyan had defeated Lin Maju by relying on his swordsmanship. His strength was not strong. Chapter 85. Under the astonished gazes of the crowd, Chu Fengyan walked to Chu Banj's side and picked up his storage pouch. He placed all 10,000 chi-amassing pills into Chu Fengyan's storage pouch. Chu Fengyan won this battle. Even if Chu Banj was unconscious, he would take what belonged to Chu Fengyan. Where did Chu Fengyan come from? How can his strength be so terrifying? He defeated 2 martial artists at the 7th level of the body, refining realm, at the 5th level of the body, refining realm. Chu Fengyan is a monster. I didn't expect that there would be a martial artist who surpassed the 4 geniuses in the extreme capital. Exclamations were heard. The gazes with which the crowd looked at Chu Fengyan were no longer filled with contempt and disdain. Practically all of them were looking at Chu Fengyan with burning gazes. Passion, envy, and worship. It was completely different from before. In the 9 regions, martial prowess and strength were always respected. As long as one had strength, they could have their own status. Is there anyone else who wants to fight for the first place? Chu Fengyan's eyes scanned the crowd. Now that he had defeated Lin Maju and Chu Banj, the first place of the Ark was already set. Right now, the only ones who could contend against Chu Fengyan were perhaps the other 2 who were also part of the 4 great geniuses. Don't look at me. I give up. A.O. Wuming saw that everyone was looking at him and hurriedly said, "Everyone has seen Brother Chu's current strength. It's impossible for me to compete with him. I give up on the first place of the Ark race." A.O. Wuchang said with a smile. He had some grudges with Lin Maju and didn't want Lin Maju to take the first place. As for who should take the first place, although he had some ideas, he was clear about Chu Fengyan's strength. Even if he went up to fight with Chu Fengyan, he couldn't win. He didn't want to waste time. Me too, Chu Wuyin also said. Her strength was about the same as Chu Banj and Lin Maju. She didn't have much of a chance against Chu Fengyan. The 4 geniuses of the extreme capital all chose to give up. When Chu Fengyan heard their words, he wasn't too surprised. Based on his current strength, he had indeed surpassed the 4 geniuses. Chu Fengyan's body moved, and he landed on the Ark in a stable manner. The first place of the Ark assessment was confirmed to be Chu Fengyan. Chu Wuyin, A.O. Wuming, and Lin Maju followed closely and landed on the Ark. Chu Banj's ribs had been broken by Chu Fengyan. He couldn't move. Chu didn't kill Chu Fengyan. Chu Fengyan's ribs was broken. Was cost. And Fengyan, he was. He got to him. Thank you, Brother Chu. Chu Fengyan landed on the ark. The blue-robed men also landed on the ark. The leader of the group couldn't help but approach Chu Fengyan and express his gratitude. Chu Fengyan. Chu Fengyan had done him a great favor by not killing Chu Banch. Although the blue-robed man's strength was a notch higher than Chu Xiang's, he was only at the 8th level of the body, refining realm. It was impossible for him to stop Chu Fengyan. If Chu Fengyan wanted to kill Chu Banch, he couldn't stop him. Chu Fengyan chose to help him and spare Chu Banch's life. He had done him a great favor. It's a small matter. Chu Fengyan glanced at the blue-robed man and sensed a familiar cultivation method from him. He suddenly opened his mouth to speak. "You're right. Do you know How Lan?" Chu Fengyan asked. He chose to listen to the blue-robed man and didn't kill Chu Banch. It wasn't because the blue-robed man was a disciple of Wushang Academy. To Chu Fengyan, no matter how strong the martialist was or how deep his background was, it was impossible for him to command him. However, Chu Fengyan felt an extremely familiar cultivation technique from the blue-robed man. It was the same cultivation technique that Chu Fengyan sensed from the young man, How Lan, in the barbaric mountain range. It seemed that the blue-robed man had some relationship with How Lan. Chu Fengyan had a good impression of the young martialist named How Lan. Only now did he make the choice to help him. "You know our young hall master?" The blue-robed man asked in surprise when he heard Chu Fengyan. His words attracted the attention of the other martialists on the ark. "Young hall master?" This Chu Fengyan actually knows a young hall master of the Martial Victory Academy. Could it be that he's actually from the Martial Victory Academy? Some of the martialists started to discuss. What they were most curious about was which force Chu Fengyan came from. After all, with Chu Fengyan's talent and strength, he didn't seem like someone that could be nurtured by an ordinary force. To be able to nurture such a powerful Chu Fengyan, there must be a great force behind him. Cough, cough. The blue-robed man also noticed the surprise in Chu Fengyan's voice. He quickly lowered his voice and spoke to Chu Fengyan again. "My name is Yu Feng, a disciple of Wushang Academy's Warmu Hall. How Lan is the young hall master of our Warmu Hall. Do you know How Lan?" It was no wonder that Yu Feng was so surprised. How Lan was young and had almost never left Wushang Academy. Some of the disciples of Wushang Academy might not even know of his existence. Yu Feng only knew the young hall master because he was a disciple of Warmu Hall. Chu Fengyan, who wasn't even a disciple of Wushang Academy, actually knew How Lan. This made Yu Feng extremely surprised. "Yes, I met him half a month ago in the barbaric mountain range," Chu Fengyan said. Chu Fengyan was also slightly surprised. It was no wonder that How Lan didn't care when he mentioned the young hall master of Wushang Academy. It turned out that he was also a young hall master of Wushang Academy. Now that Chu Fengyan had come to the extreme capital, he had some understanding of Wushang Academy. Among the countless halls of Wushang Academy, Warmu Hall ranked in the middle. It was much higher than Martial Flame Hall. Chapter 86. It seemed that the group of Wushang Academy disciples he met in the barbaric mountain range had quite the background. Chu Fengyan thought to himself, since this How Lan was a young hall master of the Martial Victory Academy, the identities of the others were suspicious as well. Mo Chanhen, Yun Jialan, and Yu Zhanqing had always addressed How Lan as peers. These three people's statuses were definitely not inferior to How Lan's. Especially when Chu Fengyan participated in the test this time, he discovered that the inner court disciples of Wushang Academy had to be at least at the 5th level of the body refinement stage to be able to enter. The strongest person in How Lan's group was only at the peak of the bone tempering stage. Although they were extremely young, being able to enter the inner court at such a young age clearly meant that the faction behind them was extraordinary. Half a month ago, young hall master did indeed go to the barbaric mountain range half a month ago. Yu Feng thought for a moment and suddenly thought of this. This was exactly the same as what Chu Fengyan had said. This also meant that Chu Fengyan really knew How Lan. Young hall master obtained a fortuitous encounter after going to the barbaric mountain range the last time. His strength and aptitude greatly increased. Now he has already entered the sacred ground of our Wushang Academy to cultivate. If Brother Chu wants to meet young hall master, I'm afraid that you'll have to wait for some time, Yufeng said with a smile. However, there's no rush. With Brother Chu's strength, as long as you pass the test, it won't be a problem for you to immediately enter the inner court. There's still plenty of time in the future. A few months is nothing. Yufeng was speaking to Chu Fengmian in a tone as if he was talking to someone of the same generation. He did not have the same high and mighty attitude that he had when facing the many martial artists who were participating in the assessment. Although Yufeng was an inner court disciple of Wushang Academy, his strength wasn't much stronger than Chu Fengmian. At the very least, Yufeng knew that although he could gain the upper hand in a battle with Chu Banj, it was impossible for him to force Chu Banj into such a miserable state. With Chu Fengmian's strength, entering the inner court was a certainty for him to enter Wushang Academy. Naturally, he wouldn't be arrogant when speaking to Chu Fengmian. Yes, Chu Fengmian nodded. He also knew what Hao Lan's fortuitous encounter was. It was the Emperor Luan grass. Emperor Luan grass was enough to turn a trash into a genius. Hao Lan's aptitude was already extremely high. With the Emperor Luan grass, it was reasonable for his strength to improve rapidly. There was actually another Emperor Luan Emperor grass in Chu Fengmian's Luan grass. Chu Fengmian had originally planned to refine this Emperor Luan grass himself and use it to increase his strength. Chu Fengmian Luan Emperor Luan grass was Luan Emperor. This Emperor Luan grass was now placed in Chu Fengmian's storage pouch, preparing to exchange it for a good price. I wonder what the content of the trial of the Wuxing Institute is. Below the Ark, countless ancient martial art practitioners were still fighting, wanting to step into the Ark. While waiting, Chu Fengmian was bored and started a conversation with Yufeng. With his strength, it wouldn't be a problem for him to enter the Martial Victory Academy. However, knowing one's enemy was the key to victory. Chu Fengmian also wanted to know what the upcoming assessment was about. There are 3 more tests. Yufeng didn't show any impatience when he heard Chu Fengmian's question. He explained with a smile. The first test is to go to Wushang Academy. It will test one's strength and realm. Although this ARC test will be able to filter out some people, it is also possible that there are many people who sneaked in. This test will eliminate nearly half of the people. Chu Fengmian nodded in agreement when he heard Yufeng's words. That's right. The test was just a filter. It might not be enough to eliminate all the people. The art trial was an extremely chaotic environment. Perhaps some cultivators would take advantage of the chaos to sneak in. The first test was to test one's strength and realm. If a cultivator didn't have strength, everything was just empty talk. Strength was the only true proof of a cultivator. This test isn't difficult for Brother Chu. Generally, one can pass the test when one's strength reaches the 8th level of the bone-tempering realm. Yufeng spoke again. Cultivators who can pass this test can be considered disciples of Wushang Academy. However, if they can't pass the next 2 tests, they'll just be odd job disciples. They'll be no different from servants. They'll have to do heavy work every day. For a colossal force like the Martial Victory Academy, if they wanted to maintain the Academy's expenses, they would definitely need countless servants. These servants were the odd job disciples of Wushang Academy. These odd job disciples had to complete a lot of work every day. Only then could they obtain resources. However, even an odd job disciple's resources were much more than the resources of many small clans outside. Therefore, many cultivators chose to enter Wushang Academy. Being an odd job disciple was much better than being a genius in a remote city. These odd job disciples had to be at least 8th level of the bone-tempering realm to take up the position. The second test is the big hunting competition. All the cultivators who pass the first test will be placed on a deserted island. That island is filled with demonic beasts. There's a total of 7 days. During these 7 days, you'll have to hunt demonic beasts continuously. According to the different monster cores, different scores will be given. Those who reach the top 100 will pass the second test. Yufeng smiled as he spoke. After passing the second test, you'll be promoted to the outer sect of Wushang Academy and become an outer sect disciple. Outer sect disciples have a much better life than odd job disciples. They'll be able to obtain a lot of resources to cultivate. You can also listen to the lectures of some experts in Wusheng Academy to comprehend the martial Tao. Compared to the disciples of the large clans outside, you'll have a much better life. Only 100 cultivators will be left for the second test. After hearing Yu Feng's words, Chu Fengmian finally understood how difficult it was to join Wusheng Academy. Out of 10,000 cultivators, only 500 would be able to enter as odd-job disciples. On the other hand, only 100 cultivators would be able to enter the outer sect. The number of cultivators who could enter the inner sect would be even fewer. To Brother Chu, there shouldn't be any problem with these two tests. It's just that the last test is slightly special. Chapter 87. A little special. Chu Fengmian was slightly surprised by Yu Feng's words. Chu Fengmian had a rough understanding of the first two tests. The first test was the simplest. It tested one's strength and cultivation level. These 2 points were also the most basic for a martial artist. As for the second test, it actually tested the martial artist's actual combat ability. After all, strength alone was meaningless for a cultivator. True combat ability was the best standard. It was just like Lin Maju and Chu Banj. In terms of strength, Chu Banj was far superior to Lin Maju. However, in a real fight, Lin Maju might not necessarily be afraid of Chu Banj with his sword skills. Their strength was on par. This was the difference between actual combat ability and strength. The third test should be for an outer disciple to be promoted to an inner disciple. Chu Fengmian knew that the highest point of the Martial Victory Academy's test was to become an inner disciple. Once one became an inner disciple, they would be free of the tedious outer disciple and would be able to cultivate in peace. Chu Fengmian's goal was to become an inner disciple. Only an inner disciple could be considered a true disciple of the Martial Victory Academy. The third test is called the Heavenly Path. Yu Feng slowly explained. The Heavenly Path is actually a pagoda left behind by an ancestor of the Martial Victory Academy. A phantom will appear on every floor of the pagoda. The strength of the phantom will be the same as the cultivator's cultivation level from the first floor onward. Then, with each level up, the phantom's power will become stronger. The Heavenly Path is actually a test of a cultivator's ability to fight above their cultivation level. It's not difficult for a true genius to fight above their cultivation level. Many sects, hall masters, and elders will choose to watch the Heavenly Path's test. Whoever performs well will be valued by one of the hall masters and elders and be accepted as a disciple. That person will become an inner sect disciple in one leap. If they are not valued, they can only become an outer disciple until they have the opportunity to be valued by one of the hall masters or elders. Yu Feng explained. In the Martial Victory Academy, the difference between an inner disciple and an outer disciple was not a difference in strength. Instead, one had to be apprenticed to one of the hall masters or elders to be promoted to an inner disciple. In terms of strength, the difference between the two was actually not that great. This Heavenly Path is rather interesting. Chu Fengmian thought to himself when he heard about the Heavenly Path. In the 7 major sects, there were also things similar to this kind of Heavenly Path. Although it was not the same kind, it was the same in theory. This kind of thing was created by some big sects in ancient times to cultivate their disciples. At that time, the martial Tao was flourishing and everyone was a genius. Things like the Heavenly Path were just some of the methods used by the disciples of the large sects to train. In Wusheng Academy, it had become a kind of test. However, the fact that Wusheng Academy was able to obtain the Heavenly Path proved that some experts had emerged from Wusheng Academy in the past. After all, even some of the forces in the 9 regions that were larger than Wusheng Academy might not necessarily possess the Heavenly Path. Chu Fengmian's decision to come to Wusheng Academy was the right one. Just this Heavenly Path alone made Chu Fengmian's trip worthwhile. With Brother Chu's strength, it shouldn't be a problem for you to reach the 20th floor of the Heavenly Path. Yu Feng looked at Chu Fengmian and smiled. Every 10 floors of the Heavenly Path represented a realm. Chu Fengmian was able to defeat Chu Banj and Lin Maju, who were at the 7th level of the body refinement realm. This also meant that Chu Fengmian's strength was sufficient to reach the 20th floor of the heavenly path. This kind of strength would be considered a very good result in Wu Sheng Academy's inner sect. The 20th floor? Chu Fengmian sneered when he heard Yu Feng's words. If he unleashed his full strength, he would be able to defeat martial artists of the first, second, or third level of the Spirit Sea realm. However, even if he defeated a martial artist at the third level of the Spirit Sea realm, Chu Fengmian would only reach the 70th floor. There was still a gap of 3 levels to reach the 100th floor. It was said that the peerless geniuses of ancient times were able to reach the 100th floor and conquer the heavenly path. Chu Fengmian's current strength was comparable to those true ancient geniuses. He also had to pass the 100th floor of the heavenly path. The people on the ark are all here. Get ready to set off. While Chu Fengmian and Yu Feng were chatting, the ark was already full of people. There were a total of 10 arks and a total of 1,000 martial artists. Not one more, not one less. Below the ark, the martial artists who didn't squeeze onto the ark were all secretly upset. However, this was how the assessment was. Only the best could pass the assessment. The ark assessment was only the first assessment. It couldn't even be considered as an assessment. The real assessment was still to come. On the ark, Chu Fengmian sat on the same spot and rested. I didn't expect senior brother Chu's strength to reach this level. No wonder you aren't afraid of the Cheng family. Chu Wuyin had unknowingly appeared beside Chu Fengmian as she spoke. It's Highness Chu. Highness Chu actually took the initiative to talk to Chu Fengmian. Since when did Highness Chu take the initiative to talk to a man? Countless martial artists around started discussing when they saw Chu Wuyin quietly walk over. The main reason for Chu Fengmian and Chu Banji's battle was actually because of Chu Banji's jealousy. Although Chu Fengmian had clarified his relationship with Chu Wuyin, in the eyes of most martial artists, the relationship between the two of them wasn't that simple. My humble daughter apologizes to your excellency for what happened with Chu Banj, Chu Wuyin said in a low voice. Chu Banj chose to provoke Chu Fengmian and bet with him just now because of her. Oh, Miss Chu, you don't have to be so apologetic. This matter has nothing to do with you. Chu Fengmian glanced at Chu Wuyin and said indifferently. He wanted to snatch the first place on the ark and obtain the reward of 10,000 contribution points. Given Chu Banj's personality, he would definitely fight with Chu Fengmian. Even if Chu Wuyin wasn't there, it would still be the same. Moreover, Chu Fengmian had won 10,000 chi-amassing pills in the bet. This was an unexpected windfall. Senior brother Chu, if you don't mind, you can call me junior sister. Chu Wuyin glanced at Chu Fengmian and said, You and I are both going to enter the Wuxing Academy. We should address each other as senior brother and junior sister. All right, Chu Fengmian nodded. There is no doubt that he and Chu Wuyin would enter the inner sect of the Wuxing Academy. Chapter 88. The two of them chatted casually for a while. The 10 arcs formed a long line as they headed south of the Academy of Wuxing. Finally, after passing through countless towering mountains and steep ridges, a huge mountain peak suddenly came into view. There were countless palaces and courtyards on the mountain peak, and blue-robed martial artists could be seen everywhere. At the center of the mountain peak was a huge group of palaces. Among them, there were more than 100 different palaces. The group of palaces was much grander than the palace of Wuxing country. Wuxing Academy was actually a superpower that transcended Wusheng country. Even the royal family of Wusheng country could not compete with Wusheng Academy. Because of this, the palaces of Wusheng Academy were much bigger than the palace of Wuxing country. It could be said that Wusheng Academy was the uncrowned king of Wuxing country. The 10 arcs came to a stop in front of a palace located halfway up the mountain. Looks like we've arrived. Chu Fengmian observed Wusheng Academy. Wusheng Academy was located on a huge mountain peak. It was clearly divided into 4 parts. At the foot of the mountain, there were countless bustling cities and fields for spiritual herbs. These were the residences of the servants and odd jobs disciples of Wusheng Academy. Countless disciples of Wusheng Academy spend an astronomical amount of money on elixirs every day. The cities and fields at the foot of the mountain were used to grow spiritual herbs to support Wu Sheng Academy's daily expenses. Apart from the cultivation of the slaves, countless factions of Wu Sheng country would contribute large amounts of spiritual herbs to Wu Sheng Academy every year. These were the ways to support Wu Sheng Academy's expenses. It could be said that every disciple of Wu Sheng Academy was raised by hundreds or even thousands of people. Naturally, each of them had extraordinary strength and countless resources. Halfway up the mountain, there were many palaces and courtyards. The disciples here were freed from their heavy work and focused on martial arts. They were the outer disciples of Wu Sheng Academy. The outer disciples of Wu Sheng Academy only needed to complete some tasks assigned by Wu Sheng Academy every year. Then they could cultivate freely. Therefore, all of them were progressing rapidly. At an even higher place, there were many courtyards. This was the area where the inner disciples of Wu Sheng Academy resided. The inner disciples of Wu Sheng Academy did not need to do anything. Their only goal was to cultivate. The stronger the disciple, the more likely they would become the foundation of Wu Sheng Academy in the future. As for the few courtyards and palaces closest to the mountain peak, they belonged to the elders of the Martial Victory Academy. Ordinary disciples were not allowed to approach them. The 4 zones perfectly separated the 4 levels of the Martial Victory Academy. Without an order, the disciples of the lower zone were not allowed to enter the upper zone. The place where the ark stopped was actually in front of a palace in the area where the outer sect disciples were located. Some of the outer sect disciples were already waiting there, ready to take a look at this batch of newcomers. This batch of newcomers doesn't seem to be much. I'm afraid there are less than 400 people who can pass the first test. An outer disciple of Wu Sheng Academy said disdainfully, I wonder how many people will be promoted to the inner disciple this time. Although the overall strength of this batch of newcomers isn't strong, there are 4 extremely talented geniuses. The 4 of them should be promoted to the inner sect without any suspense. Another outer sect disciple said. The names of the 4 geniuses of the extreme capital were known by many people in Wu Sheng Academy. They were curious to see who the 4 great geniuses were. Humph, what 4 geniuses? The so-called geniuses are just bragging in the extreme capital. Those who could be promoted to the inner sect are all geniuses and monsters. Another outer court disciple opened his mouth and said in a disapproving tone, the 4 geniuses are only at the bottom of the inner sect. Even in the outer sect, they are not considered the top. Oh? Lin Maju, Chu Beige, and the rest are not considered the top in the outer sect of Wu Sheng Academy? Chu Fengmian was slightly surprised when he heard the words of the outer sect disciples. When Chu Wuyin heard Chu Fengmian's words, she naturally understood Chu Fengmian's thoughts and explained. The outer sect and inner sect of Wu Sheng Academy are not necessarily very different in strength. As far as I know, there are a few extremely powerful geniuses in the outer sect. However, they are proud and arrogant and are unwilling to join the ordinary halls. Therefore, they have been staying in the outer sect and have not been promoted. Their strength isn't inferior to some of the inner court disciples. Among them, the strongest few have even reached the 8th or 9th level of the body refinement stage. Chu Wuyin explained. Although she had not been to Wu Sheng Academy before, she was already very familiar with the academy. Yes, Chu Fengmian nodded. He also understood the situation. Some geniuses thought highly of themselves and were naturally unwilling to join the ordinary halls. However, the truly powerful halls had extremely high standards for disciples. Therefore, after a while, these people simply did not want to be apprenticed. They had been cultivating in the outer sect and waiting for an opportunity. The resources of Wu Sheng Academy had always been linked to one's strength. Therefore, some of the truly powerful outer sect disciples would not necessarily receive less resources than the inner sect disciples. Naturally, there was no need for them to join the inner sect. Let's go. The location of the first test is next. Chu Wuyin said and leaped down from the ark. Chu Fengmian followed suit and jumped down from the ark. They walked into the palace. In the middle of the palace, there was a huge rock standing in the middle. This rock was engraved with countless arrays that were added to it. There were a total of 9 sections on the rock. A martial artist walked to the front and placed his hand on the rock. Suddenly, he injected spiritual energy into the rock. Thump, thump, thump. The 9 sections of the rock began to glow with red light. It only stopped when the 8th section lit up. Level 8 Bone Tempering Realm. You passed the test. Go ahead, an old man sitting on a chair said without lifting his eyes after glancing at the result. Chapter 89. Some of the martial artists around Chu Fengyan began to quietly discuss. Can this stone only detect the 9th level of the bone tempering realm? What about the body tempering realm? A martial artist could not help but ask. The martial artist just now was at the 8th level of the bone tempering realm, so 8 of the stones were lit up. What would happen if it was an even stronger body tempering realm martial artist? Didn't you see that the light that appeared just now is red? This is the symbol of the bone tempering realm. If it was a body tempering realm martial artist, their light would be orange. Another martial artist explained. Martial artists of different realms will show different colors. For example, the color of the divine sea realm martial artists is yellow. First, we use the color to determine the realm. Then, we look at the number of stones lit up to determine a martial artist's realm. However, this martial testing stone uses spiritual power and not realms. Therefore, there may be some errors, but most of the time, there won't be any problems. Hearing this, Chu Fengyan could not help but nod his head. Realms were not the only deciding factor among martial artists. For example, although Lin Maju's strength was considered top-notch among martial artists at the 7th level of the body tempering realm, his spiritual power was only at the 6th level of the body tempering realm. Among sword cultivators, martial artists who majored in the light sword were weaker than martial artists of the same realm. This was because they spent most of their time training their sword skills, so their strength was weaker. However, in terms of actual combat, their strength was not inferior to martial artists of the same realm. Another martial artist took the initiative to step forward. Compared to the previous person, this person did not look very confident. His face was clearly flustered. Chu Fengyan could tell that this martial artist was only at the 7th level of the bone tempering realm. There was not much chance of passing the martial testing stones test. Thump, thump, thump. That martial artist used almost all of his spiritual power to inject into the martial testing stone. Streaks of red rocks had already lit up. When it reached the 7th stone, he finally used up all of his spiritual power and could not light up anymore. Seeing this result, countless martial artists could only shake their heads. 7th level of the bone tempering realm. He had failed this test. A martial artist at the 7th level of the bone tempering stage was not even qualified to become a part-time disciple of the Martial Victory Academy. The old man raised his head and said coldly when he saw the result. 7th level of the bone tempering stage failed. Prepare to go back. Deacon, can you make an exception for me? My cultivation level is about to break through. It would be good if you could just let me be an odd job disciple. That cultivator begged bitterly. His strength was not considered very strong. Being able to pass the ARC's assessment was already considered extremely lucky this time. If he left this time and came back tomorrow for the next assessment, he might not even be able to pass the ARC assessment. The old man raised his head. His eyes were filled with anger as he roared. What do you think this is? This is the Wu Sheng Academy. Those without strength don't even have the qualifications to be a servant disciple. Hurry up and leave. If you don't leave, do you want this old man to personally send you out? The aura that erupted from the old man's body was extremely terrifying. He had reached the 8th level of the body refinement stage. Even a deacon in charge of the examination was actually at the 8th level of the body refinement stage. That cultivator's face was ghastly pale. He could not even move under the pressure of the old man's aura. A few cultivators at the side who were on good terms with this cultivator hurried forward and dragged this cultivator out. Why don't you think about where you are? Is the Wu Sheng Academy a place where you can bargain? Some of the cultivators could not help but sneer when they saw this scene. Without strength, even if you enter the Wu Sheng Academy, you'll still be a piece of trash. You can't say that. If you can enter the Wu Sheng Academy, Even if you're just an odd job disciple, you'll have much better resources than many of the clans outside. A cultivator spoke up. However, the Wusheng Academy standards are really high. 7th level of the bone tempering stage doesn't even have the qualifications to be an odd job disciple. Stop talking. Hearing the discussions, the old man suddenly spoke up. The place instantly fell silent. The old man's strength was enough to intimidate everyone present. The Wusheng Academy had sent this old man to be the deacon in charge of the examination. Naturally, they wanted to intimidate everyone. Next, another warrior stepped forward and walked up to the top to test his strength. Chu Fengmian looked over. Approximately 1 out of every 2 people was not strong enough and would be eliminated. It seemed like there were less than 500 cultivators who could pass the first examination. Next, another person. This time, a skinny man walked up and attracted the attention of all the cultivators present. It's Lin Maju. It's finally the 4 geniuses' turn. Many of the cultivators present had been waiting for the 4 geniuses. The 4 of them had always been invincible among the younger generation in the extreme capital. Now, everyone wanted to see how strong the 4 geniuses were. Bang! Lin Maju walked up to the rock and hit the martial testing stone with one hand. Thump, thump, thump. Rays of red light instantly covered the entire rock at the same time. Then, another orange light began to shine. The orange light only stopped when it reached the 6th rock. 6th level of the body, refining stage. What a terrifying newcomer. Is there such a terrifying monster among the newcomers this time? This person should be Lin Maju, one of the 4 geniuses among this batch of newcomers. Seeing Lin Maju's strength, many of the Wusheng Academy's outer court disciples exclaimed. 6th level of the body refining stage was considered above average among the Wusheng Academy's outer court disciples, especially Lin Maju, who was not even 20 years old. With such terrifying strength at such a young age, he would probably be accepted as an inner court disciple by some hall master or elder after passing the examination. 6th level of the body refining stage. This result was within Chu Fengmian's expectations. Even if Lin Maju was a sword cultivator and his strength was weak, his realm was still at the 7th level of the body refining stage. It should not be a problem for him to burst out with the strength of the 6th level of the body refining stage. Young master, please move to the inner part of the palace. When the second test begins, a disciple will call for you. Chapter 90. This old man had always had a cold attitude towards these newcomers. Now that he had seen Lin Maju's strength, his face was full of smiles. Many people were surprised by how quickly he had changed his attitude. With Lin Maju's strength, it's a given that he'll enter the inner sect in this assessment. It's normal that the old man would choose to curry favor with him. Chu Fengmian thought when he saw this. The old man's strength did surpass Lin Maju's, but he was already in his 70s or 80s. If he did not have the opportunity to break through to the Divine Sea realm, his strength would have reached its limit. Lin Maju was not even 20 years old. His future was limitless. The old man was doing Lin Maju a favor at this time. When Lin Maju grew up, he would also benefit. Many of the outer disciples were already used to the old man's actions. Although Lin Maju was not a disciple of Wusheng Academy and was not allowed to enter the palace according to the rules, the old man was the invigilator of this assessment. Naturally, no one objected to his words. That's right. Why can Lin Maju enter the palace while we have to stand outside? A few martial artists who had just passed the assessment heard the old man's words and spoke with dissatisfaction. Those who had passed the assessment had to wait outside for the first assessment to end before they could participate in the second assessment. Lin Maju, on the other hand, had directly entered the palace to rest quietly. This difference in treatment naturally made them unhappy. If your strength can reach the 5th level of the body refining realm or above, you can naturally enter the palace to rest. The old man glanced at the martial artists and said coldly, "Martial artists who have passed the assessment, leave quickly and wait outside the palace." I'm not convinced. There's no such rule in this assessment. As the invigilator, how can you violate the rules? The martial artist said angrily. Can the rules of Wusheng Academy be violated so casually? Stupid. Chu Fumian sneered when he heard the martial artist's words. Rules. In this world, the only rule was strength. Without strength, any rules were meaningless. These martial artists were only at the 8th or 9th level of the bone-tempering realm. What right did they have to talk about rules with the old man? Sure enough, when the old man heard the questioning of those martial artists, his face instantly turned gloomy. Just now, he had already asked those warriors to leave quickly. This was already giving them a way out. However, since these warriors didn't know what was good for them, how could he, an outer court deacon and the invigilator of this examination, be afraid of these warriors? Scram! If you continue to make a ruckus, all of you will be disqualified, the old man said coldly. Humph! Even if you are the invigilator this time, you don't have the right to disqualify us. We all passed the first exam, a warrior said angrily. He dared to confront the old man now, because he felt that since he had passed the first test, there was no need for him to be afraid of the old man. He had taken the exam in front of everyone. He did not believe that the old man would really disqualify him. Good. I didn't think that this year's little fellows would be so arrogant, daring to point fingers at this old man. The old man's eyes turned cold as he pointed at the few warriors who had just spoken. You're disqualified. Piss off from the Martial Victory Institute at once. You dare. The warrior wanted to retort, but a few outer court disciples had already arrived. When they saw those cultivators, they suddenly made a move and captured the cultivators who had just spoken. They threw them out of the palace, disturbing the peace. Next, the old man sat down calmly on his seat and spoke again. This time, the entire place was silent. No one dared to go against the old man anymore. Many people had already figured out what was going on. Even if this old man was an outer court deacon, he was still a martial artist at the 8th level of the body refinement stage. Compared to those people who could only be considered as odd jobs disciples, his status was much higher. How could the Martial Victory Institute punish this old man for a few servant disciples? Next, the examination continued. This time, a noble lady in white walked out. Its Highness Chu. Her strength should be slightly stronger than Lin Maju's. Some people thought to themselves as they stretched out their hands and hit the martial testing stone. Thump, thump, thump. A red light flashed past. Following that, an orange light shot to an extremely high position in an instant. 7th level body, refining realm. The orange light only stopped when it reached the 7th stone. Many outer court disciples exclaimed in surprise. The seemingly weak Chu Wuyin strength was actually stronger than Lin Maju's. She should be Chu Wuyin from this batch of newcomers. She is also one of the 4 geniuses. Her strength is really terrifying. Compared to her strength, her appearance is truly terrifying. It is said that when she was still in the Martial Victory Academy, many inner disciples of the Martial Victory Academy wanted to pursue her. Now that she has come to the Martial Victory Academy, I'm afraid those people will all go crazy. Such an appearance isn't a good thing for a lady. If she doesn't have strength, I'm afraid it will cause trouble. A warrior couldn't help but speak. Appearance might not be a good thing for some ladies. Instead, it might be a disaster. After all, appearance was like a treasure. Without enough strength to protect it, it would be a disaster. Hey, you don't know? With this lady's status, I'm afraid even the inner court disciples of the Martial Victory Institute wouldn't dare to go against her. They can only pursue her. Another warrior couldn't help but speak. Otherwise, do you think those inner court geniuses would be so calm and wait? Status? Who is this lady? That warrior obviously didn't understand and hurriedly asked. Let me tell you, this lady is silence. The old man suddenly spoke and interrupted everyone's conversation. He looked at Chu Wuyin and revealed a smile, just like before. You go to the hall and wait for the examination to end. Okay. Chu Wuyin agreed and left proudly. This Chu Wuyin's status is extraordinary. Chu Fumian thought with a smile. However, Chu Fumian didn't care about Chu Wuyin's status. Chapter 91. Chu Fumian did not pay attention to the few martial artists who approached him. There were only a few martial artists in the 5th level of the body tempering realm who caught Chu Fumian's attention. These people's fame was suppressed by the four geniuses, but their talent and strength were not bad either. Now that they had come to Wuxing Academy and had received sufficient resources, their strength would definitely improve rapidly. Next, the elder said, "It's finally my turn." Chu Fengyan thought to himself. He moved his feet and walked out of the crowd. Seeing Chu Fengyan walk out, many people could not help but start discussing. "It's Chu Fengyan. It's finally Chu Fengyan's turn. I wonder if Chu Fengyan's strength can surpass Chu Wuyin's." After all, he defeated Chu Wanga in terms of strength. Some of the onlookers started discussing. Chu Fengyan placed his hand on the martial testing stone and injected a surge of spiritual energy into it. Dang, dang, dang. The red light covered all 9 rocks at an extremely fast speed. Then, it lit up with an orange light. The orange light continued forward without any pause. In an instant, it had arrived at the position of the 7th rock. 7th level of the body-tempering realm? What a terrifying strength. It's actually comparable to Chu Wuyin's strength. An outer sect disciple could not help but exclaim in shock. Who is he? Is he one of the 4 geniuses, Chu Wanga? Looking at Chu Fengyan, some outer sect disciples started discussing. In their opinion, only the 4 great geniuses could achieve this level of strength. No, his name is Chu Fengyan, but he's not from the family Chu. During the Arc assessment, he defeated Chu Wanga and prevented him from stepping on the Arkansas, an outer sect disciple explained. Obviously, he knew a little about what had happened in the extreme capital. He defeated Chu Wanga? There's actually such a monstrous person in this batch of newcomers. Hearing the outer sect disciples' words, many people around them gasped. Chu Wanga's strength was extremely famous in Wuxing Academy. Many people said that he could become this batch's newcomer king. However, no one expected Chu Wanga to be defeated during the Arc assessment and not even qualified to participate in the first assessment. No, look at the martial testing stone. While everyone was discussing, a voice suddenly sounded. Countless people's gazes followed the voice and looked towards the martial evaluation stone. The orange light on the martial testing stone did not stop. Instead, it lit up again. The 8th rock was also filled with bright orange. 8th level of the body refinement stage. That's impossible. How can a newcomer possess such terrifying power? Some of the outer sect disciples were in disbelief when they saw this result. The 8th level of the body refinement realm had already surpassed Chu Wuyin's strength. In the outer sect, many of the true overlords of the outer sect had only reached the 8th level of the body refinement realm. However, all of them had already cultivated in Wuxing Academy. The 7th level of the body refinement realm was the limit for an ordinary newcomer. A newcomer at the 8th level of the body refinement realm was something that the Martial Victory Academy rarely encountered even once in 100 years. 8th level of the body refinement realm. Could it be another Ling Tian? When the old man saw this result, he couldn't help but mutter to himself. However, after the orange light covered the 8th rock, it still did not stop. He was still sprinting toward the 9th rock. Thump! Another sound was heard. The 9th rock was also dyed in an eye-catching orange color. 9th level of the body refinement realm. How is that possible? Could it be that the martial arts evaluation stone is broken? Even Ling Tian was only at the 8th level of the body refinement realm when he participated in the entrance examination. Could it be that this kid's aptitude has surpassed Ling Tian's? When many martial artists saw this scene, their hearts could no longer be described with the word shock. The highest aptitude that the martial arts evaluation stone had seen in the past 1,000 years was a martial artist who had participated in this examination 15 years ago, Ling Tian. At that time, his examination result was only at the 8th level of the body refinement realm. However, the current Chu Fengyan had already surpassed him. One had to know that Ling Tian's aptitude was already the best in Wuxing Academy. No one could shake his position. No one would have thought that the current Chu Fengyan would actually have such terrifying aptitude. The orange light continued to shine, causing countless people to be on tenterhooks. Could it be that he's at the divine sea realm? It can't be. How can a kid who's not even 20 years old reach the divine sea realm? Many people shook their heads frantically. However, Many people no longer dared to make a judgment in their hearts. Chu Fengmian was definitely a person who transcended common sense. When it neared the peak of the ninth rock, the orange glow gradually dimmed. It didn't continue to shine. This caused many warriors to heave a sigh of relief in their hearts. As expected, it's impossible for a martial artist who has reached the Divine Sea realm to appear in the entrance examination. Nonsense. It's not that easy to reach the Divine Sea realm. Being able to reach the Divine Sea realm is already enough to be promoted to the position of hall leader. Some martial artists couldn't help but speak. Their tone was also much more relaxed. If Chu Fengmian's strength had reached the Divine Sea realm, they would all be ashamed. Is it impossible to achieve? Chu Fengmian heard the crowd's discussion and sneered in his heart. At the last moment, he had already retracted his spiritual energy. The strength of the ninth level of the body refinement realm was already enough to make Chu Fengmian stand out in Wuxing Academy. If Chu Fengmian had really released all his spiritual power without caring about anything else, he might have reached the second or even the third level of the Divine Sea realm. After all, the Lin Mansion's first elder, a martial artist at the third level of the Divine Sea realm, was defeated by Chu Fengmian. Chu Fengmian's full strength was indeed at the Divine Sea realm. However, it was still too dazzling to show the strength of the Divine Sea realm this time. Chu Fengmian had to reserve some strength as a trump card. "Young master, please go to the hall and wait." The elder looked at Chu Fengmian and was speechless. He didn't expect that there would be such a monstrous genius in the examination where he was the invigilator. A person who had surpassed the current number 1 genius of Wuxing Academy. Someone who had even surpassed Ling Tian. Okay. Chu Fengmian nodded his head and walked into the hall. Lin Maju and Chu Wuyin were already waiting in the hall. Seeing Chu Fengmian enter, the two of them weren't surprised at all. Chapter 92. Ninth level of the body, refinement realm. Young Master Chu's strength is much stronger than we imagined. Lin Maju looked at Chu Fengmian and said. Lin Maju was completely convinced of Chu Fengmian's strength. Chu Fengmian defeated him with his swordsmanship at the 5th level of the body, refinement realm. Now, Chu Fengmian's strength far surpassed his. Lin Maju knew that he was no match for Chu Fengmian. "I just had a few encounters in the past," Chu Fengmian said with a smile. He did not explain the problem of his strength. These geniuses all had their own hidden trump cards. Chu Fengmian also believed that Lin Maju's strength was not as simple as it seemed. The two of them chatted casually for a while. Ao Wuming also walked into the palace. With Ao Wuming's strength, it was not surprising that he entered the palace. Other than the three of them, there were 4 or 5 other martial artists who also entered the palace. Their strength was around the 5th level of the body refinement realm. They stood far away, not daring to look at Chu Fengmian, Lin Maju, and Chu Wuyin. The 5th level of the body refinement realm meant that they had some hope of being promoted to the inner sect. Therefore, they were also arranged to enter the palace. However, their strength was much weaker than the 4 geniuses, so they did not dare to approach. The first test was finally over after half a day. When Chu Fengmian and the others left the palace, there were already more than 400 people standing outside. Chu Fengmian counted. Including them, there were a total of 460 people. In other words, more than half of the 1,000 people who came to the Wuxing Academy did not pass the test and were sent back. 460 people. This result is reasonable. Chu Fengmian thought to himself. He also knew that the number of people who passed the test was usually around 500. 460 people was considered normal. The remaining 460 people would also participate in the second test. Everyone board the ark and prepared to participate in the second test. The old man glanced at the crowd and said, 5 arks descended from the sky. Everyone boarded the arks and flew toward the south. The arks gradually stopped when they reached an island at the edge of the coast. A white-haired old man glanced at the crowd and said, "This island will be the location of your second test. This time, the test is to hunt demonic beasts. There are countless demonic beasts on this island. In 7 days, the scores will be calculated according to the grade of the demonic beasts hunted. Those who reach the top 100 will pass the test. while the rest will become miscellaneous disciples. There's only one rule for the test. The demonic beasts you hunt must be at least at the 9th level of the bone tempering stage. Demonic beasts below the 9th level of the bone tempering stage will not be counted. After 7 days, everyone is to return here with their Yao cores. After the white-haired old man finished speaking, he returned to the Ark and did not say anything else. All that was left were countless martial artists who were discussing animatedly. Only demonic beasts above the 9th level of the bone tempering stage. With my strength, it's already extremely difficult for me to kill a demonic beast at the 8th level of the bone tempering stage. How could I possibly kill a demonic beast at the 9th level of the bone tempering stage? An 8th level bone tempering martial artist said helplessly. With his strength, it was extremely dangerous for him to hunt a 9th level bone tempering stage demonic beast. If you're unwilling to participate, you can return to the Ark now and become a miscellaneous disciple. There are no useless disciples in my Wushang Academy. When the white-haired old man heard the martial artist's words, he coldly snorted. From now on, everyone is to return at noon 7 days later. If you don't return, I'll take it that you died at the hands of the demonic beasts. Go. As soon as the white-haired old man finished speaking, countless martial artists abruptly leaped off the Ark and rushed to the island. This island was incomparably huge, and it was covered with countless dense forests. Countless martial artists entered the island and disappeared one by one. Following that, the roars of beasts and the sounds of slaughter could be heard. I'm also leaving. Let's see who can hunt the most demonic beasts in 7 days. Lin Maju laughed heartily. His body also leaped off the Ark and jumped onto the deserted island. There were only 7 days left. Everyone had to make the best use of their time to hunt the demonic beasts. Lin Maju, be careful. Don't die at the hands of the demonic beasts. Ao Wuming sneered and leaped off the Ark as well. The two of them were originally sworn enemies. Now that they were in this test, they had to compete. Senior Chu, be careful. On this island, the Chung family and Family Chu's people who might seize this opportunity to deal with you. Chu Ween, who was at the side, whispered to Chu Fengyan. With the power of the two families, it's not difficult for them to send people to this island. The deserted island of the second test was originally only accessible to the participating disciples. However, the Chung clan and the Chu clan were both major clans within the Martial Victory Institute. They could cover the sky with one hand. Given the power of these two clans, if they wanted to deal with Chu Fengyan, this was the best time to do so. This was because in the second test, there were actually countless disciples who died at the hands of the demonic beasts every year. Although they died at the hands of the demonic beasts, it was uncertain whether they died at the hands of humans or demonic beasts. If the two families wanted to deal with Chu Fengyan now, this deserted island was the best choice. Because even if Chu Fengyan died, he could only blame it on the demonic beasts. Many thanks. Hearing Chu Wuin's warning, Chu Fengyan's heart calmed down. This was because he had already noticed that there were some abnormalities on this island. On this island, there were two divine Sea Realm martial artists. Naturally, it was impossible for there to be a divine Sea Realm martial artist among the participants of this test. Now, without thinking, Chu Fengyan knew that there was something fishy going on. Family Chu and the Chung family. Even if they want to deal with me, I'm not that easy to deal with. Chu Fengyan let out a hearty laugh. His figure moved, and he abruptly descended from the Ark. He suddenly ran into the forest. Seeing Chu Fengyan enter the forest, the white-haired elder took out a sound transmission jade talisman and whispered, Chu Fengyan has already entered the deserted island. Very good. You've done well. You should know how to deal with the rest of the matter. A cold voice came from the sound transmission jade talisman. This voice was filled with boundless anger. If Chu Fengyan heard it, he would naturally recognize that this voice belonged to Chu Wanga. Young Master Chu, I understand. Next, this kid will say that he died at the hands of the demonic beasts. After all, there are many disciples who die at the hands of the demonic beasts every year. Chapter 93. As soon as Chu Fengyan entered the deserted island, he leaped into the forest. He didn't care about the demonic beasts around him and kept running towards the island. There were too many martial artists in the outskirts of the forest. They had to fight over demonic beasts to kill them. Chu Fengmian naturally couldn't be bothered to fight with those martial artists. Moreover, what he wanted to kill wasn't the tempered bone stage demonic beasts in the outskirts. Demonic beasts that were worthy of Chu Fengmian's hunt had to be at least at the 7th level of the body refinement realm. The second test wasn't just about the number of demonic beasts killed, but also the grade of the demonic beasts in exchange for points. The stronger the demonic beast, the more points one would obtain after killing it. Therefore, Chu Fengmian immediately rushed towards the demonic beasts at the 7th level of the body refinement realm and above. Ordinary martial artists had no way of killing these demonic beasts, nor could they compete with Chu Fengmian. After running for 6 hours, Chu Fengmian finally arrived at the depths of the forest. He looked around, looking for traces of demonic beasts. Roar! All of a sudden, a beastly roar could be heard. Chu Fengmian looked towards the direction of the roar and saw a huge tiger about 5 to 6 meters long. It was looking at Chu Fengmian with killing intent. Oh, a blood-eyed tiger at the 7th level of the body refinement realm? Chu Fengmian glanced at the blood-eyed tiger and muttered to himself, "I'll leave it to you to start this Chu's hunting journey." Chu Fengmian's figure abruptly moved and charged toward the blood-eyed tiger. Suddenly, he pulled out his sword and aimed it at the blood-eyed tiger's throat. A flash of sword light flashed. The blood-eyed tiger's throat was cut by Chu Fengmian. A blood-eyed tiger at the 7th level of the body refinement realm was easily killed by Chu Fengmian. Hiss! Chu Fengmian skillfully cut open the blood-eyed tiger's head with his sword. The tip of his sword picked out a sparkling demonic pill and stored it in his storage bag. Looks like this area is already the territory of demonic beasts at the 7th level of the body refinement realm and above. This way, I can start hunting. Chu Fengmian thought to himself. Once again, he ran towards the depths of the forest. Along the way, countless demonic beasts were easily killed by Chu Fengmian. One day, in this day's time, Chu Fengmian had practically killed all the demon beasts at the 7th level of the body refinement stage and above. The entire forest had become completely silent. No beast roars could be heard. Chu Fengmian stood in front of a giant python at the 8th level of the body refinement realm. He skillfully took out the Yao core and looked around. Looks like I'll have to change locations. Chu Fengmian placed the monster core into his storage pouch with familiarity. Chu Fengmian's storage pouch now contained dozens of monster cores of various sizes. Although the amount wasn't much, these were all demonic cores from demonic beasts that had reached the 7th level of the body refinement stage and above. In terms of points, Chu Fengmian didn't believe that there would be anyone with a higher score than him. Although it was said that if one could enter the top 100, they would be able to proceed to the next round of assessment. However, everyone knew that the closer one's ranking was, the more attention and nurturing they would receive. Chu Fengmian thought to himself. He was also clear about the way these forces nurtured their disciples. Generally, only disciples with outstanding performances would receive large amounts of resources to nurture. If Chu Fengmian wanted to receive resources, he had to perform well. The top 100 was far from enough to satisfy Chu Fengmian. Chu Fengmian had to be number 1. There were already no other demon beasts in the vicinity. If he wanted to hunt other demon beasts, he had to head to other areas. He left as soon as he said so. Chu Fengmian stood up and walked in another direction. Chu Fengmian wasn't the only one who could hunt demon beasts at the 7th level of the body refinement stage and above. Although Lin Maju, Chu Wuyin, and Ao Wuming didn't hunt demon beasts as easily as Chu Fengmian. However, hunting demon beasts at the 7th level of the body refinement stage wasn't a problem. They were also Chu Fengmian's formidable opponents. Chu Fengmian couldn't waste any time. His figure traversed through the forest. Not long after, his figure suddenly stopped on a tree. Below, a martial artist's body was covered in wounds. Blood was already dripping down from his clothes. It was obvious that he was heavily injured. However, the injuries on his body didn't seem to be caused by a demon beast attack. Instead, they were injuries caused by a weapon. Not far behind the martial artist, several martial artists were madly chasing after him. They held various weapons in their hands. The weapons were all stained with blood. It was obvious that the injuries on the martial artist's body were caused by them. A human killing someone? Chu Fengmian was shocked when he saw this scene from the tree. The scene before his eyes was the scene of a human killing someone. Those martial artists had obviously formed a small group and were currently chasing after this martial artist. Chu Fengmian also remembered the martial artist being chased. His name was Su Hu, and he was a rising star in this year's batch. His strength had also reached the 5th level of the body refinement stage. Chu Fengmian had seen him once in the palace, so Chu Fengmian had some impression of him. Su Hu's strength was actually weaker than Chu Fengmian and the 4 great geniuses. Within this batch of disciples, he was already considered an extremely powerful existence. However, he didn't expect that he would be forced to such an extent. Although the few people chasing after him weren't as strong as Su Hu, their strengths were all around the 4th level of the body refinement stage. Especially this group of people. Chu Fengmian roughly glanced at them and saw that there were more than 10 of them. It was difficult for 2 fists to fight against 4 hands. It was no wonder that Su Hu could only escape with injuries. Now, it seemed that Su Hu had already suffered extremely serious injuries. It looked like he was about to run out of energy. Su Hu, let's see how you'll escape this time. A martial artist sneered as he blocked Su Hu's path. Countless martial artists at the side had already caught up. More than 10 martial artists surrounded Su Hu. Su Hu, hand over all your demon cores and submit to young Master Cheng. Then, I can spare your life this time. Otherwise, you'll definitely die today. The martialist sneered as he looked at Su Hu. You should know how to choose. Following young Master Cheng isn't any better than being alone. Young Master Cheng will definitely be promoted to the inner sect in the future. With the Cheng family's influence, you might also have a chance to be promoted to the inner sect. Bah, Yi Fei, you want to be a dog? Don't think that I'm the same as you. Su Hu looked at Yi Fei and said sternly, as a martial artist, I pursue martial arts all my life. If I become someone's slave, then what kind of martial artist am I? What kind of martial arts am I cultivating? Even if I, Su Hu, die today, I won't submit to that trash from the Cheng family. If you want me, Su Hu, to submit, then only someone who can defeat me can rely on numbers. I'll never submit. Chapter 94. Su Hu's body was already riddled with thousands of wounds. However, his aura wasn't affected in the slightest. This caused Chu Fengmian to view Su Hu in a higher light. Although a martial artist's aptitude was important, what was more important to them was their heart. Only with a martial heart could one become a true powerhouse. Su Hu was right. If a martial artist was willing to be a slave, then what was the point of cultivating the martial path? However, it was almost impossible for Su Hu to resist now. Among the dozen or so martial artists, the strongest one had also reached the 4th level of the body refinement realm. Although the remaining people weren't considered very strong, they were still at the 4th level of the body refining realm. Although the rest weren't that strong, when a dozen or so people gathered together to besiege one person, Su Hu was still unable to resist. Enough ants could bite an elephant to death. In the face of an absolute difference in strength, this saying wasn't wrong. If you don't agree, then you'll definitely die today. What's the point of cultivating the martial path? Yi Fei mocked. If young Master Cheng didn't think highly of you and wanted to recruit you, do you think you'd be able to survive? Bah, even if I, Su Hu, die, I won't follow that trash from the Cheng clan. The 3 trash from the Cheng clan only managed to sneak into the Martial God Academy by relying on the Cheng clan's power. People like them won't make Su Hu submit. Su Hu said sternly, if you have the ability, then kill me today. Good. As expected, you have a backbone. I like to see how long your backbone can last. Beat him until he's dead. Yi Fei laughed sinisterly. The dozen or so martial artists surrounded Su Hu together. Each and every one of them faced Su Hu as their spiritual energy exploded. It seems that if I don't act, then Su Hu will die here today. Chu Fengmian muttered to himself when he saw this scene. Since you have a martial heart, I, Chu, will save you this time. Beat him. Yi Fei had just shouted when a wave of spiritual energy suddenly descended from the sky. Chu Fengmian's figure suddenly jumped down from the tree and landed beside Su Hu. The powerful spiritual energy sent the surrounding dozen or so martial artists flying. Who is it? How dare you obstruct us? Don't you know that we're following young Master Chang's orders? Yi Fei shouted angrily when he saw someone appear. Where did this reckless brat come from? Reckless? This is the first time someone has dared to speak to me like this. Chu Fengmian said softly. His eyes were fixed on Yi Fei. Hearing Chu Fengmian's voice, the expressions of the dozen or so warriors all changed. It's you, Chu Fengmian? Seeing Chu Fengmian's expression, Yi Fei suddenly laughed out loud. I didn't expect you to come to me on your own accord. Young Master Cheng has just given the order to kill anyone who meets you. Your head is worth 10,000 contribution points. We haven't even gone to look for you, and you actually delivered yourself to our doorstep. It was not just Yi Fei. Those cultivators were also extremely excited. If they were able to kill Chu Fengmian, they would all be rich. 10,000 contribution points would be equivalent to a few hundred energy amassing pills. These few hundred chi amassing pills were much more than their entire wealth. You want to kill me? Chu Fengmian looked coldly at those warriors. With just you? Chu Fengmian, do you think you could be arrogant just because you're this year's newcomer king? As the saying goes, enough ants can bite an elephant to death. With so many of us, do you think we can't deal with you alone? Yi Fei laughed as he looked at Chu Fengmian and shouted, Come, let's kill Chu Fengmian first and bring his head back. Young Master Cheng will reward you handsomely. Su Hu hurriedly said from his side, Young Master Chu, be careful. Although you're strong, they outnumber you. You should escape first. Don't worry about me. He could already see that Chu Fengmian had taken the initiative to appear to save him. However, no matter how strong Chu Fengmian was, could he withstand the siege of more than a dozen body, refining realm warriors? He had just been besieged by these people, so he naturally knew the feeling of powerlessness. Su Hu roared angrily. You go first. I'll hold him back. Since Su Hu is already a dead man, I'll drag a few of them down with me before I die. Don't worry, these people can't hurt me. Chu Fengmian sneered and said indifferently, If you want to die, then come at me. Go. Kill him. Who does Chu Fengmian think he is? Does he still think he's a divine sea realm warrior? Can he fight against so many of us? Yi Fei shouted. Even if each of us punches, we can still kill him. The moment Yi Fei shouted, a huge machete in his hand also slashed at Chu Fengmian. This machete formed a crescent moon, which was Yi Fei's most powerful martial technique. The remaining dozen or so warriors did the same. They all attacked at the same time. Suddenly, they bombarded Chu Fengmian. Break for me. Chu Fengmian just stood where he was and pointed his finger gently. The spiritual energy that erupted from his fingertips abruptly dissolved everyone's attacks. It seems that each of you wants to die, Chu Fengmian said coldly. He just said that whoever wanted to die would attack. Since these people wanted to die, Chu Fengmian would fulfill their wishes. Chu Fengmian, how dare you kill us? We are all young Master Cheng's men. If you kill us, you won't be able to survive on this island. Yi Fei shouted. At this critical moment, he didn't believe that Chu Fengmian would dare to kill him. He was young Master Cheng's man. If Chu Fengmian killed him, he would be going against the Cheng family. Unfortunately, Yi Fei had long forgotten about it. Chu Fengmian had already offended the Cheng family. Chu Fengmian had broken all the ribs of Cheng Qin, the third son of the Cheng family. He even dared to beat the young master of the Cheng family. Why wouldn't he dare to kill these dogs? Die! Chu Fengmian spat out 2 words coldly. Bang! Chu Fengmian moved his feet and suddenly punched at Yi Fei. With one punch, Yi Fei's chest was smashed by Chu Fengmian. He turned into a pile of meat paste and fell to the ground. The other martialists wanted to make a move as well, but Chu Fengmian was faster than them. Bang! 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 Each of Chu Fengmian's punches represented the death of a martial artist. In a short moment, more than a dozen warriors had fallen to the ground. They were all killed by Chu Fengmian. There was no breath left on their bodies. Chapter 95. When Su Hu saw this scene, he was simply dumbfounded. He couldn't say a word. In his opinion, No matter how strong a body refining realm martial artist was, it was impossible for him to fight against more than 10 body refining realm martial artists. At least when he was fighting, he did not feel that he had a chance. But now, Chu Fumian had effortlessly killed the dozen or so martial artists. This level of strength was not something that a body-tempering realm cultivator could display. Previously at the martial testing stone, he did not use his full strength. Su stared at Chu Fumian in disbelief. During the martial testing stone, the strength that Chu Fumian displayed had already reached the 9th level of the body refining realm. But, judging from the fight just now, Chu Fumian's strength was more than the 9th level of the body refining realm. He was probably able to fight against a Divine Sea realm martial artist. Chu Fumian was not interested in Su Hu's reaction. His attention was now on the storage bags. He opened the storage bags of those martial artists one by one. At a glance, there were at least a few hundred monster cores. Although the grades of these monster cores were not high, the quantity was frightening. These monster cores should have been obtained by this group of people hunting demonic beasts and even chasing other martial artists. Chu Fumian said, to be able to accumulate so many monster cores in one day was definitely not something that a dozen people could do. Based on the meaning of their previous words, this group of people should have been hunting other cultivators to seize other cultivators' monster cores. Chu Fumian did not expect that these martial artists would have already teamed up on the first day. This point was actually not wrong. For some weaker martial artists, it was impossible for them to enter the top 100 alone. However, if they teamed up, they might have a chance. For example, Yi Fei's strength was far inferior to Su Hu's, but he could lead others to besiege Su Hu and force him into a desperate situation. Su Hu, where did these people come from? Why are they chasing after you? Chu Fumian turned his head and asked Su Hu. He only knew that this group of people was formed by a young master of the Chang family. However, he did not know what exactly happened. Senior Chu doesn't know? Su Hu was a little surprised by Chu Fumian's question. This matter had already caused a storm of blood on the island, but Chu Fumian actually didn't know about it. However, looking at Chu Fumian's expression, Chu Fumian really shouldn't know about it, so he hurriedly explained. These people were actually gathered by the second young master of the Cheng clan, Cheng Kong. The moment Cheng Kong came, he controlled countless warriors. Right now, there are more than 400 warriors on the island. At least 200 of them are controlled by Cheng Kong. These people are in groups of a dozen or so on the deserted island. They specialize in hunting demonic beasts. At the same time, they will also hunt martial artists, forcing them to join them and hand over their demonic cores. Previously, when I was hunting demonic beasts, I was ambushed by them. In the end, I was injured and couldn't escape. They wanted to force me to join them, Su Hu said angrily. His heart was filled with anger. If he hadn't been injured by the sneak attack, although he wouldn't have been able to defeat the dozen or so people, he would have been able to escape unscathed. How could he have fallen into such a situation? If not for Chu Fumian's sudden arrival today, perhaps he would have died. The second young master of the Cheng clan, Cheng Kong? Chu Fumian remembered this name when he was testing the martial stone. He was a martial artist at the first level of the body refining realm. Chu Fumian wasn't interested in remembering this person's strength. If not for his surname, Chu Fumian would have forgotten him long ago. Looking at it now, this Cheng Kong should be a member of the Cheng clan. He was the elder brother of Cheng Qin, whom Chu Fumian had broken before. With this Cheng Kong's strength, it doesn't seem to be enough to control many people. Could it be that those people are willing to listen to Cheng Kong? Chu Fumian asked doubtfully. This Cheng Kong's strength couldn't be considered strong. Chu Fumian was also very curious. How did he manage to establish such a huge force in a single day? Cheng Kong's strength is actually nothing. He's just a piece of trash. Su Hu changed the topic. But behind Cheng Kong is the Cheng clan. Perhaps young Master Chu isn't clear about the power of the Cheng clan. This Cheng clan is an existence that can cover the sky in the outer sanctum of the Wuxing Academy. Among the outer sanctum of the Wuxing Academy, the strongest force is the Green Alliance, controlled by the Cheng clan. This Green Alliance's influence in the inner sanctum is extremely high. How would we, the new martial artists, dare to go against the Green Alliance? Hence, many martial artists have chosen to submit and join Chen Kong's forces. This way, they have the opportunity to join the Green Alliance. Green Alliance. This was the first time Chu Fumian had heard of this term. However, Chu Fumian naturally knew that there were countless forces in the Wuxing Academy. The Wuxing Academy was actually an extremely loose organization. It was actually made up of countless halls. However, the halls were still managed by the Wuxing Academy. Within the Wuxing Academy, there were even more forces established by the disciples of the Wuxing Academy. This Green Alliance was one of them. These forces were more or less supported by the higher-ups of the Wuxing Academy and some big clans. Among them, the Green Alliance was a force supported by the Chang clan. With the power of the Chang clan, the Green Alliance was an extremely large force in the Wuxing Academy. It was no wonder that those martial artists had taken the initiative to submit to Chang Kong. A big tree would be able to enjoy the shade. For those martial artists who did not have a high aptitude, it was not a bad choice to be tied to such a huge force. Su Hu, are you saying that close to half of the martial artists on the island are from the Green Alliance? Chu Fengmian looked at Su Hu and suddenly asked. That's right. It's very likely that there will be more. After all, countless martial artists have taken the initiative to join. The remaining martial artists who did not join might have been killed by the disciples of the Green Alliance. After all, the fewer martial artists on the island who are still alive, the higher their chances of getting into the top 100. Su Hu nodded and said, This Chen Kong is really vicious. He actually wants to take all the cultivators on the island as his own and then kill all the cultivators who resist. Chu Fumian's eyes turned cold. The actions of the Green Alliance had infuriated him. They killed people. It was normal for them to kill people for wealth. However, this attitude of those who submit to me will prosper and those who resist me will perish really infuriated Chu Fumian. Su Hu, do you want to do something with me? Chapter 96. Senior Chu, please tell me. Su Hu said hurriedly. His life was saved by Chu Fumian. Naturally, he would not refuse to do something for him. Isn't Chen Kong planning to use the Green Alliance to hunt down the martial artists on this island? Then we will hunt down the martial artists who have sided with Chen Kong. Chu Fumian said coldly. What? Hunt down the martial artists from the Green Alliance? Su Hu said in disbelief when he heard Chu Fumian's words. They were from the Green Alliance. Now, all the martial artists on the island would take a detour when they saw them, for fear of being discovered. This was because the Green Alliance always acted in groups of more than 10 martial artists. No matter how strong a martial artist was, he would not be able to fight against more than 10 martial artists who were also in the body refining realm. It was impossible for one to fight against 10 martial artists. Therefore, most people would run away when they met the martial artists from the Green Alliance. No one was like Chu Fengmian, who actually wanted to fight against the Green Alliance. This kind of action was crazy. However, he could not refute it. Chu Fengmian's strength was enough to kill more than 10 martial artists from the Green Alliance in an instant. With this kind of strength, he might really be able to hunt down the other martial artists from the Green Alliance. Su Hu is willing to follow Senior Chu and hunt down those bastards from the Green Alliance. Su Hu said angrily. He had been chased so badly by the Green Alliance. Now that he had the chance to take revenge, he was willing to follow. Good. Chu Fengmian sneered. The speed of obtaining demonic cores from killing demonic beasts was not as fast as directly killing martial artists. Since Chen Kong planned to hunt down the other martial artists on this deserted island, Chu Fengmian would kill all the martial artists from the Green Alliance in one fell swoop. Here, Chu Fengmian took out a bottle of pills from his empty ring and handed it to Su Hu. Swallow and refine it. Yes. Su Hu did not hesitate. He poured out a pill and swallowed it. Logically speaking, this kind of medicinal pill given by others must be carefully considered. But after all, Chu Fengmian had just saved Su Hu's life. Now that Chu Fengmian had no reason to harm Su Hu was naturally relieved. Once the elixir entered his mouth, there was no need to refine it. It dispersed and turned into spiritual energy that began to repair Su Hu's body. In less than 5 minutes, Su Hu's injuries were mostly healed. Most of the wounds on his body had also begun to heal. Thank you, Senior Chu. Sensing the changes in his body, Su Hu hurriedly expressed his gratitude. He also knew that this pill was definitely not a low-grade pill. Otherwise, it would be impossible for it to have such a significant effect. Don't worry, your strength is almost recovered. Next, we'll have to rely on you to find those Green Alliance martial artists. Chu Fengmian said indifferently. The medicinal pellets were actually some healing medicinal pellets that Chu Fengmian had obtained from the storage pouch of the Martial Flame Hall's Hallmaster. Healing medicinal pills were completely useless to Chu Fengmian. Currently, Chu Fengmian possessed the bloodline of the ancient war dragon. No matter what kind of injury one received, at the very least, as long as one did not die, one would be able to completely recover within a day. It was much faster than the recovery of these medicinal pills. Now that he had given it to Su Hu, Chu Fengmian was rushing for time. He wanted Su Hu to recover faster. Since you've almost recovered, let's set off. Chu Fengmian looked at Su Hu and sneered. From what Yi Fei had said, Chen Kong wanted to offer a reward for killing Chu Fengmian. Today, he would like to see who would be the one to kill who. Yes, Su Hu replied, and moved his body, traversing through the forest. Su had already dealt with those Green Alliance martial artists. Naturally, it would be easier for him to find others than for Chu Fengmian. Generally speaking, the martial artist who participated in the second test would act alone. Therefore, those who appear to be moving in groups were mostly from the Green Alliance. Chu Fengmian and Su who were standing on a branch of a giant tree. They looked down at the martial artists who had gathered below. In front of these martial artists were the corpses of 3 martial artists. Guchun, Pu Hua. I didn't expect the 2 of them to be killed by the Green Alliance. Looking at the state of 2 of the martial artists, Su Hu's face was filled with anger. These 2 people were also 2 martial artists who had pretty good relationships with Su Hu. Their strengths were all around the 4th level of the body refining stage. Amongst the martial artists in this year's batch, their strengths were already considered not bad. In this demonic beast hunting assessment, it was very likely that they would all be ranked in the top 100 and be promoted to outer court disciples. But now, they had died in the hands of these Green Alliance disciples. These guys are all filthy rich. They hunted so many demonic beasts. It's a pity that no matter how many they hunted, it's all for us. A cultivator looked at the corpses and laughed heartily. So what if they're strong? In front of the Green Alliance, they're just ants. That's right. We've joined young Master Chung. There's so many benefits. In just one day, more than 10 martial artists have died in our hands. Another martial artist said coldly. Young Master Chung said that we only need to hand over half of the demonic cores we obtained. The rest will belong to us. In the future, when we're promoted to outer sect disciples, we'll all be members of the Green Alliance. At that time, it won't be a problem to call the wind and summon the rain in Wuxing Academy. Another martial artist said regretfully, it's a pity that we haven't met Chu Fengmian yet. Young Master Chung has already increased the reward by several times. Now that we've killed Chu Fengmian, we'll get 50,000 contribution points. Whoever can get 50,000 contribution points will be rich. That Chu Fengmian is blind. He actually dared to offend the Chung family. Looks like he's going to die on this deserted island. So what if he's this year's newcomer king? If Chu Fengmian meets us, we'll still be able to kill him. Is that so? You want to kill this Chu with just a bunch of dogs and chickens? Chu Fengmian's voice suddenly sounded. Chu Fengmian's figure instantly appeared behind the martial artist who had just spoken. The sword in his hand moved, and the martial artist's head was chopped off by Chu Fengmian's sword. It's Chu Fengmian? Don't panic. There are more than 10 of us. We're not afraid of him. A few martial artists hurriedly shouted in unison. The surrounding martial artists of the Green Alliance had already surrounded Chu Fengmian. Chu Fengmian, I didn't expect you to take the initiative to come to us. Useless? No matter how strong you are, I don't believe that you can withstand the attacks of more than 10 of us. Chapter 97. You're about to die, and you're still talking nonsense. Chu Fengmian's eyes were filled with murderous intent. The hands of these Green Alliance martial artists were stained with blood. Chu Fengmian had no regrets in killing them. Ultimate sword dance. Chu Fengmian waved the dark green sword in his hand. Hiss! Wherever the sword passed, a Green Alliance martial artist would be killed by Chu Fengmian. In an instant, more than a dozen Green Alliance martial artists were killed by Chu Fengmian. Suhu was terrified when he saw how fierce Chu Fengmian was. Killing more than a dozen body refining realm martial artists was as easy as killing an ant for Chu Fengmian. This made Suhu feel that even with his strength, he was like an ant in front of Chu Fengmian. Suhu was originally a martial artist at the 5th level of the body refining realm. He was also a slightly famous genius in the extreme capital. He had always thought that he would be able to put up a fight even if he were to face the 4 geniuses. But now, when he saw Chu Fengmian's attack, he saw through it. If Chu Fengmian wanted to kill him, one move was enough. This level of strength had far surpassed him. Such a young genius. I don't know if I should be happy or sad to be in the same generation as him. Suhu couldn't help but sigh as he jumped down from the tree. His eyes were filled with hatred as he looked at his 2 friends who had been killed by the Green Alliance. Suhu, will destroy the Green Alliance in the future. It won't be easy to destroy the Green Alliance. But if Chen Kong wants to cover the sky with one hand, it won't be hard for me to destroy him, Chu Fengmian said coldly. Against the entire Green Alliance, Chu Fengmian wouldn't overestimate himself. After all, the Green Alliance was one of the major powers in the Wuxing Academy. But on this deserted island, Chu Fengmian wasn't afraid of the combined strength of these martial artists. Chen Kong wanted to use the Green Alliance's name to win over these martial artists so that he could have a chance to get first place in this demonic beast hunting assessment. In that case, Chu Fengmian was going to give him a big present today. Let's go and find the next team, Chu Fengmian said to Suhu. The 2 of them moved and once again passed through the forest. The forest was already filled with the stench of blood. Now, in this forest, it was no longer a battle between warriors and monstrous beasts. Instead, it was a crazy battle between countless warriors. The results of this demonic beast hunting assessment were only based on the results of the last day. In other words, no matter how many demonic cores a cultivator possessed, they would still be able to obtain the demonic beast hunting assessment. Until the last day, if he was killed by someone, that person could also take away his Yao core and become the new first place. Therefore, instead of saying that many cultivators were hunting monstrous beasts, it would be better to say that they were hunting cultivators. Snatching the monster cores of other martial artists was much faster than hunting by oneself. 2 days. Chu Fengmian and Suhu had already killed 5 teams of Green Alliance martial artists. The 2 of them did not go after the other martial artists. Instead, he only targeted the Green Alliance's martial artists. These Green Alliance warriors were hunting other warriors and obtaining monster cores. Now, all of them were in Chu Fengmian's hands. There were already more than 1,000 monster cores. This number was much more than Chu Fengmian's 7 days of hunting. With so many monster cores, Chu Fengmian was not stingy. He took out 10% of them and gave it to Suhu. Although it was only 10%, it was still a huge amount. However, this was already a huge number. These monster cores were enough for Suhu to enter the top 100 and advance to the next round. Since Suhu was here to help Chu Fengmian, he naturally would not mistreat him. In these 2 days, Suhu had also benefited a lot from following Chu Fengmian. Senior Chu, it seems that the Green Alliance disciples have not been active recently. I don't know where they have gathered. Chu Fengmian sat under a tree and was resting. Suhu, who was in charge of searching for the Green Alliance warriors, came back after patrolling the area. He came to Chu Fengmian's side and said, I can't find any Green Alliance martial artists around here. Oh, could it be that these Green Alliance disciples have been gathered? Chu Fengmian's eyes showed that he was thinking. He suddenly thought of something and stood up. Follow me. As he spoke, Chu Fengmian's figure leaped into the forest. Although Suhu did not know what Chu Fengmian was thinking, he now trusted Chu Fengmian unconditionally. He hurriedly followed. Chu Fengmian was already in the forest, walking quickly in a certain direction, because he had already sensed that something was wrong. When Chu Fengmian first arrived on this deserted island, he had noticed that there were 2 Divine Sea Realm warriors on this island. Chu Fengmian originally thought that the 2 Divine Sea Realm warriors were here to kill him. So, Chu Fengmian had been hunting the Green Alliance warriors to show his identity, to lure out the 2 Divine Sea Realm warriors. But in these 2 days, the 2 Divine Sea Realm warriors still did not appear. Instead, they seem to be doing something in another place. Coupled with the sudden disappearance of the Green Alliance disciples, Chu Fengmian immediately noticed the connection between these two things. Chu Fengmian and Su Hu ran in the forest for 2 hours before they arrived at the edge of the deserted island. There was a huge cave at the edge of the island. Outside the cave, Chu Fengmian glanced over and saw that there were more than 100 warriors gathered. These martial artists were all wearing green badges. They were the martial artists of the Green Alliance. Why are all the Green Alliance warriors gathered here? Su Hu was shocked when he saw all the Green Alliance martial artists gathering together. Logically speaking, the demonic beast hunting assessment only lasted for 7 days. Every second was extremely precious. But now, all the Green Alliance disciples were gathered here, as if they were studying something. The leader of the group was a man who looked similar to Cheng Qin. He should be the second son of the Cheng family, Cheng Kong. Behind Cheng Kong stood 2 middle-aged men. These 2 middle-aged men had jade-like skin. They were people who had trained their bodies to the limit. There was also a faint 5 elements spiritual energy on their bodies. Divine Sea Realm warriors? Who are these 2? There are actually divine Sea Realm warriors on this deserted island? Su Hu's expression changed when he saw the 2 middle-aged men. These 2 middle-aged men looked extremely unfamiliar. They could not be newcomers to this assessment. Besides, divine Sea Realm warriors were almost invincible on this deserted island. Chapter 98. It seemed that the 2 divine Sea Realm martial artists had been sent by the family Chu and the Cheng clan to deal with Chu Fengmian. Chu Fengmian thought to himself, the family Chu and the Cheng clan really thought highly of Chu Fengmian, sending 2 divine Sea Realm martial artists to deal with him. However, from the looks of it, the attention of the 2 of them seemed to have been focused on the cave. They seemed to be discussing something. Uncle Imo, what is the strength of the demonic beast in the cave? Cheng Kong stood in front of the cave and looked into the depths of the cave as he spoke. Young Master Cheng, there should be a terrifying demonic beast in the cave. I'm afraid it's at least in the wind resistance realm. Given our current strength, there's no way we can deal with it. One of them, a middle-aged man named Uncle Imo, glanced at the cave and said in a deep voice, "Are you sure the richly lush monument is in this cave?" Cheng Kong said. He then turned to the other middle-aged man and said, "Don't worry. That's right. The news came from the Cheng clan's patriarch, so it can't be false. The family Chu's patriarch should know about it as well. Senior Chu Bei should know as well. The family Chu received the news as well." Chu Bei nodded and said, "The richly lush monument is very important. The family Chu and the Cheng clan have joined forces because we hope to seize the opportunity to obtain it first. As for Chu Fengmian, it won't be too late to deal with him after we obtain the richly lush monument." When Chu Fengmian's name was mentioned, Chu Bei's eyes flashed with killing intent. Chu Fengmian had defeated Chu Beige during the Arc trial, so Chu Beige wasn't even qualified to enter the Martial Victory Academy. The family Chu had already formed a grudge with Chu Fengmian. He had come to the deserted island with the intention of dealing with Chu Fengmian. However, he hadn't expected that the richly lush monument would appear on the island. It was because of this that their opportunity had been put on hold. Richly lush monument? It's that spirit artifact? When Chu Fengmian heard the name of the richly lush monument, he suddenly remembered something. The victorious martial nation was actually a new nation that had only been established 1,000 years ago. The founder of the victorious martial nation was none other than Grand Emperor Richlush, a very famous figure who had single-handedly created his own nation, which was a terrifying thing to behold. Supposedly, Grand Emperor Richlush was even stronger than the Wind Riding level, and was in the God Force level. The Richlush steel was a supreme-grade Earth-class spirit item personally created by Grand Emperor Richlush, and was second only to heavenly-class spirit items. In the victorious martial nation, it was impossible to find a single spirit item that could compare to the Richlush steel. It was no wonder that the Cheng family and family Chu didn't come looking for trouble with Chu Fengmian. Compared to the Richlush steel, dealing with Chu Fengmian was nothing. Who would have thought that I would come across a spirit treasure like the Richlush steel? A look of anticipation appeared in Chu Fengmian's eyes. The rich lush steel could be considered a high-grade spirit item in the various nations. Even the elders of the 7 great sects might not necessarily have a spirit item of the same grade as the rich lush steel. It just so happened that Chu Fengyan didn't have a suitable spirit item. If he could get his hands on the rich lush steel, Chu Fengyan was confident that he would be able to fight a martial artist of the 6th or 7th level of the Spirit Sea realm. Family Chu and the Chung family want the rich lush steel, don't they? Chu Fengyan's lips curled into a cold smile. Today, Chu Fengyan would take the rich lush steel and make them understand that if they wanted to deal with him, they would have to pay the price. Even as Chu Fengyan thought to himself, he continued to listen in on the conversation between the three. Chu Fengyan was currently 100 meters away from them. Ordinary martial artists wouldn't have been able to hear what they were talking about. However, Chu Fengyan's 5 senses were extremely sensitive. Even from 100 meters away, Chu Fengyan could hear everything clearly. The three of them would never have dreamed that their conversation would be heard by Chu Fengyan. We will kill that kid, Chu Fengyan, sooner or later. However, compared to him, the rich lush steel is more important. Uncle Mo nodded his head and said, if we can get our hands on the rich lush steel, the strength of our Chung family and family Chu will increase. When the time comes, with the strength of our 2 ancestors and the rich lush steel, we will be able to fight a few of the grand elders of the Martial Victory Academy. We might even be able to replace the imperial family of the Martial Victory Nation with family Chu. What? Is that really possible? Chen Kong was extremely shocked when he heard Uncle Mo's words. The imperial family of the Martial Victory Nation was an extremely powerful force. Although the Martial Victory Academy claimed to be above the Martial Victory Nation, the imperial family of the Martial Victory Nation was still powerful enough to influence the academy. How could it be so easy to replace them? Why not? With the rich lush steel, how could the imperial family possibly stand a chance against our Chung family and family Chu? Chu Bei also sneered. The imperial family is no longer the same as it was in the past. Our family, Chu, has long since planned to replace them. As long as we join forces with your Chung family and get the rich lush steel, replacing the imperial family will be a piece of cake. Brother Chu, let's cut the crap. Let's get the rich lush steel first. Uncle Mo interrupted. The demonic beast in the cave isn't easy to deal with. I'll just enter the cave. The pressure of the demonic beast alone isn't something you or I can deal with. The rich lush steel is inside the cave. If the demonic beast doesn't leave, none of us will be able to get the rich lush steel. Given our strength, we might not be able to deal with the demonic beast. However, we do have a few ways to get it out of the cave. A cold look appeared on Chu Bei's face as he spoke. All we have to do is find a bait to lure it out of the cave. It'll only take us 1 minute to enter the cave and get the rich lush steel. It won't be difficult. However, the bait won't be easy to find. Chu Bei said, there is no need to explain the bait to lure the demonic beast out. A martial artist. Only the flesh and blood of a martial artist could lure the demonic beast out of the cave. However, whoever lured the demonic beast out would definitely die. Who would be willing to throw their lives away? That's a good plan. We don't need to kill the demonic beast. We just need to get the rich lush steel and lure it out. Chapter 99. As for the bait, don't we have it now? Chung Kong's eyes started to size up the Green Alliance disciples who were standing not too far away. His eyes were filled with murderous intent. Since these guys have chosen to join the Green Alliance, it's time for them to contribute. Chung Kong looked at the disciples of the Green Alliance as if he was looking at slaves. His plan was to let the Green Alliance disciples lure the demonic beast so that they could take the rich, lush monument from the cave. Hearing Chung Kong's words, Chu Bei gave him a few more looks. Oh, Lord Chung, you're so young, but you're so decisive. Chung Kong praised him. As a leader, it was necessary to kill decisively. For the sake of benefits, it was not undesirable to sacrifice some people. Since young Master Chung has spoken, then this Chu will respectfully accept. Chu Bei sneered. His figure suddenly rushed into the crowd of Green Alliance warriors. He grabbed 5 or 6 of them and bound them with spiritual energy. Then, he threw them into the cave. What are you doing? We didn't join the Green Alliance to die. You want us to be bait to lure the demonic beast? Many of the Green Alliance martial artists' faces changed drastically. They tried to use their energy to resist. But the Divine Sea realm and the Body Refining realm were two different realms. Under Chu Bei's power, the Green Alliance disciples who tried to resist were easily suppressed. Since you've chosen to join the Green Alliance, you're all members of the Green Alliance. I'm the one who decides whether you live or die. Anyone who dares to resist will die. Cheng Kong's eyes were filled with ruthlessness. Uncle Amo, look after these guys. Kill anyone who dares to resist. Yes. Uncle Amo snorted coldly as he stared at the Green Alliance disciples. Seeing the spiritual energy erupting from Uncle Amo, the Green Alliance disciples couldn't resist even if they wanted to. These Green Alliance disciples thought that they would be protected by the Green Alliance. They didn't expect that they would have to pay with their lives. Chu Fengmian was indifferent to all of this. Since these Green Alliance disciples had wanted to join the Green Alliance of their own volition, this outcome could not be blamed on anyone else. Chu Fengmian's eyes were fixed on Chu Bei. It threw a martial artist into one of the caves. In an instant, the ground shook and the mountains shook. What followed was an earth-shattering sound. A huge body, which seemed to be dozens of meters long, suddenly appeared in the cave. Looking at the warrior at the entrance of the cave, a huge mouth opened. Amidst a miserable shriek, the warrior was devoured by this huge demonic beast in a single gulp. All of this happened in an instant. The demonic beast had once again returned to the mountain cave. It's a dragon turtle and an ancient dragon turtle's bloodline. Although the demonic beast had only appeared for a moment, Chu Fengmian was still able to tell what kind of beast it was. It was an ancient dragon turtle, with strength at the peak of the Wind Rider realm. The Dragon Turtle clan was one of the most terrifying clans among the countless demonic beasts. This kind of dragon turtle possessed the bloodline of a true dragon, and its strength was much more terrifying than many Jiao dragons. That was especially true of the one in front of him. It was covered in dragon scales, and clearly had the blood of true dragons in its veins. This ancient dragon turtle was incredibly strong, and with the blood of true dragons in its veins, no one in the same level as it could do anything to it. According to the legends, Grand Emperor Richlush's mount had been an enormous dragon turtle. Now it seemed that it was this ancient dragon turtle. Grand Emperor Richlush had long since perished in the River of Time. But this ancient dragon turtle had lived on and was now guarding the Richlush steel. Chu Fengmian wasn't the only one to realize this. Chu Bei was the same. This must be the ancient dragon turtle that Grand Emperor Richlush rode on, Chu Bei said. I never would have guessed that it's actually guarding the Richlush steel. That said, it's true that ancient dragon turtles are delicious. As long as we use the flesh and blood of martial artists to lure it out, it should be enough to lure it out, Chu Bei said in a low voice. Beside him, the other Green Alliance martial artists were already trembling in fear. They had watched with their own eyes as the ancient dragon turtle swallowed the Green Alliance martial artist whole. When they thought about what would happen to them, their faces turned pale. Senior, could you spare my life? If you could spare me, I'd be willing to be your slave for the rest of my life to repay your kindness. One of the martial artists asked Chu Bei in a trembling voice. But Chu Bei's expression was as calm as ever, and a disdainful smile appeared on his face. Slave for the rest of your life? You don't qualify for that. Just die obediently in the mouth of this ancient dragon turtle. If you can contribute to the prosperity of our Cheng clan and family Chu clan, then you won't have lived in vain. Chu Bei laughed loudly, then grabbed the martial artist and threw him into the cave. Once again, the martial artist was thrown toward the entrance of the cave. Similar to the previous time, when the ancient martial art practitioner had just thrown it to the entrance of the cave, the huge ancient dragon turtle suddenly leaped out of the cave. It bit down on the warrior's body. This time, Chu Bei didn't choose to retreat. Instead, he grabbed another martial artist and threw him even further away. One martial artist after another was caught by Chu Bei and thrown into the ancient dragon turtle's mouth. At this time, the ancient dragon turtle was already farther and farther away from the cave. After using a few techniques, it had already pulled some distance away. It's about time. Chu Bei and Uncle Emo looked at each other and understood each other's thoughts. With the two of them working together, they bound all the Green Alliance warriors and threw them towards the primordial dragon turtle. The primordial dragon turtle was still immersed in the pleasure of devouring the martialist's flesh and blood. Chu Bei and Uncle Emo moved at the same time and rushed toward the cave. It's time. Chu Fengmian's eyes flickered, and his body moved abruptly. He charged into the cave and suddenly leaped out. He had been waiting on the side for this opportunity. Chu Fengmian didn't have any good methods to deal with the ancient dragon turtle. Chapter 100. Hurry up. Those Green Alliance cultivators won't be enough for the archaic dragon turtle. We have to get the richly lush monument and escape. Chu Bei said hurriedly. Although the two of them were only in the Divine Sea realm, they were nothing compared to the archaic dragon turtle, which was at the peak of the Imperial Wind realm. They would still be eaten by the archaic dragon turtle. Don't worry. 1 minute is more than enough. Uncle Emo laughed loudly. If they could get the richly lush monument, it would be a great achievement for the two of them. When they returned to their respective clans, they would be rewarded immensely. When the two of them reached the depths of the cave, they saw a stone monument the size of a person. There were countless formations engraved on the monument. Many of these formations had lost their effectiveness due to the lack of spiritual energy. However, the immense amount of spiritual energy on the monument still shocked the two of them. So this is the richly lush monument. Such terrifying power. No wonder it was once a terrifying existence in the divine power realm, the spiritual artifact of the Grand Emperor of Rich Lush. Chu Bei's eyes flashed with greed as he spoke. However, the greed only lasted for a moment before disappearing. The Rich Lush monument wasn't something he could take by himself. He had to hand it over to his clan. Stop sighing. When the archaic dragon turtle returns, you and I will be in trouble. Hurry up and take the Rich Lush monument and leave. Uncle Emo was clearly much calmer. After saying that, he walked towards the Rich Lush monument. Just as he was about to approach the richly lush monument, it suddenly vanished without a trace. When they saw the monument disappear, the two of them were stunned. Then they looked around frantically. The Rich Lush monument couldn't have disappeared without a trace. There was only one possibility. There was a third person in the cave. Who is it? Uncle Emo suddenly roared. A gust of spiritual energy burst out from his body, forming a whirlwind that swept across the entire cave. The cave was not spacious at all. The whirlwind immediately filled the entire cave. I've been discovered. Chu Fengmian calmed down. He had quietly entered the cave and hidden himself so that Chu Bei and Uncle Emo wouldn't be able to detect him. However, the cave was still too small. There was no place for Chu Fengmian to hide. But since he couldn't hide, he might as well come out and fight. Chu Fengmian's figure suddenly appeared as he looked at the whirlwind. Chu Fengmian held the abundant, lush tombstone in his left hand while the profound azure sword appeared in his right. Numerous sword lights flashed in front of him, and the whirlwind was easily sliced apart. Uncle Emo shouted when he saw Chu Fengmian holding the richly lush tombstone. Kid, hand over the richly lush steel, and I'll spare your life. Spare my life? You dare to be so arrogant. Chu Fengmian sneered. Didn't the two of you want to kill me for a long time? Today, I'm standing right in front of you. I'd like to see just how you'll accomplish this. Chu, are you Chu Fengmian? Hearing Chu Fengmian's address, Chu Bei's expression suddenly changed. Then, he looked at Chu Fengmian and suddenly laughed. Kid, I haven't come looking for you yet. I didn't expect you to come looking for death. Very well. Today I'll kill you first. Then, I'll take the richly lush tombstone from you. An innate earth spirit suddenly appeared on Chu Bei's body. Chu Bei's body was also covered in a thick layer of spiritual power armor. Family Chu was a body-tempering family. All of the family Chu's disciples cultivated body-tempering techniques. Chu Bei was no exception, especially since he had reached the Divine Sea realm. He was able to condense the innate earth spirit and use it on himself. This level of strength was many times stronger than Chu Bei's. Chu Fengmian, you should feel honored to die at the hands of a Divine Sea realm warrior. Chu Bei laughed loudly and clenched his fists. His feet moved, and in a single step, he arrived in front of Chu Fengmian. He punched at Chu Fengmian with both fists. As a divine sea realm warrior, he was sure to win against a body-tempering realm warrior. Moreover, Chu Bei's punch contained all of his strength. He wanted to kill Chu Fengmian with one blow. He absolutely did not believe that there was any martial practitioner in the body-refining realm who could withstand a punch from him. Chu Bei could already imagine Chu Fengmian being killed by his punch. The smug smile on his face froze in the next moment, because his punch was easily blocked by Chu Fengmian's sword. Chu Fengmian's sword blocked his punch, and all the power of his punch was easily neutralized. How is this possible? Even if your spiritual weapon could withstand this punch, the rebounding force would be enough to break his arm. Seeing Chu Fengmian easily blocked his punch, Chu Bei's expression changed. He was in disbelief. How can a body-tempering realm warrior compete with a divine sea realm warrior? Die! Chu Bei roared again and threw another punch. But this time, Chu Fengmian didn't just block it. Chu Fengmian's sword moved again. Almost the same thing happened again. Chu Fengmian's sword blocked Chu Bei's punch perfectly. At the same time, Chu Fengmian clenched his left fist and punched at Chu Bei. Bang! This punch hit Chu Bei's chest. Chu Bei was forced to retreat dozens of steps. The layer of armor condensed by spiritual power on his body was shattered by Chu Fengmian's punch. This armor could even withstand a divine sea realm warrior's attack for a while, but it was shattered by Chu Fengmian's punch. This caused Chu Bei to have some doubts in his heart. Who was the divine sea realm warrior? Why was Chu Fengmian suppressing him and gaining the upper hand? Whoosh! Just as Chu Bei was forced to retreat, a gust of wind suddenly appeared behind Chu Fengmian. This gust of wind was not normal. It suddenly condensed into a dagger behind Chu Fengmian's back. It stabbed at Chu Fengmian's back. Innate wind spirit. This innate wind spirit had silently approached Chu Fengmian's back and turned into a dagger, ready to sneak attack Chu Fengmian. Sneak attack? You'd better learn how to control your breath. Chu Fengmian glanced and suddenly punched to the right. Bang! A sound was heard. A figure was suddenly blasted out by spiritual power. Just now, when Chu Fengmian and Chu Bei were fighting, Uncle Mo had quietly hidden himself. He intended to sneak attack Chu Fengmian. But how could this kind of aura-concealing technique escape Chu Fengmian's eyes? Chapter 101. Although Chu Fengmian didn't have any spiritual power in his previous life, his sword intent had reached the peak of perfection. The peak of sword intent could not only strengthen the blade, but could also see through heaven's secrets. Although Chu Fengmian hadn't reached that level yet, a sneak attack like this wouldn't work on Chu Fengmian. The two of you can go die now. Chu Fengmian looked at Chu Bei and Uncle Mo with killing intent in his eyes. This mountain cave could belong to the ancient dragon turtle. Chu Fengmian had to finish off these two people before the ancient dragon turtle returned. Otherwise, Chu Fengmian would be in trouble when the ancient dragon turtle returned. Kill us? Do you think you can be so arrogant with your strength? Chu Bei looked at Chu Fengmian with a cold expression. A body-refining realm martial artist actually threatened to kill two divine sea realm martial artists. No matter who heard this, it would be a joke. You don't believe me? Chu Fengmian's eyes turned cold and he moved. Chu Fengmian's figure had already disappeared from the cave without making a sound. Be careful. This guy's body movement is very strange. Chu Bei yelled. Chu Bei had suffered a loss at Chu Fengmian's hands before, so he knew that Chu Fengmian's body movement couldn't be underestimated. He was already fully prepared. The earth spirit armor on his body condensed once again. Unfortunately, these preparations were meaningless in front of Chu Fengmian. Boom! There was a loud noise. Uncle Mo hurriedly turned around. Chu Bei was lying flat on the ground. A punch had punched a big hole in Chu Bei's chest. Under the protection of the earth spirit armor, one punch was enough to break it and even kill Chu Bei with one punch. This time, Uncle Mo was completely stunned. Even a warrior at the 5th LV of the Spirit Sea realm might not have the confidence to break this layer of earth spirit armor with one punch. The earth spirit was the strongest power of the innate earth. The defense of the Earth Spirit armor was the strongest among the innate 5 spirits. Furthermore, Chu Bei was a body cultivator, so his body was much tougher than an ordinary martialist's. Even under such circumstances, he was still killed by Chu Fengmian with a single punch. You are a warrior of the Spirit Sea realm? Are you hiding your strength? Uncle Mo looked at Chu Fengmian and secretly hated those people from the Chung family. The people of the Chung family only told him that Chu Fengmian should be at the peak of the body refining realm. At best, he could not compete with the Spirit Sea realm. That was why he came to kill Chu Fengmian. But now, it seemed that Chu Fengmian was not at the peak of the body refining realm. A warrior at the 3rd LV of the Spirit Sea realm was killed by him with one punch. This level of strength was simply terrifying to the extreme. How could a kid who is only 20 years old have such terrifying strength? Just how terrifying was Chu Fengmian's aptitude to possess such terrifying power? It's your turn now. Chu Fengmian's eyes were fixed on Uncle Mo. His eyes were not like the eyes of a teenager at all. They were extremely deep, as if only those who had seen through the world of mortals could have such eyes. Young Master Chu, spare my life. I, Mo Wan, am willing to surrender to you. Mo Wan hurriedly said. Chu Fengmian's strength was enough to kill Chu Bei with one punch. Mo Wan's strength was not even as good as Chu Bei's, so there was no chance for him to resist. Spare your life. Chu Fengmian's eyes changed as he sneered. When Mo Wan wanted to kill Chu Fengmian, he did not think about sparing him. This time, Chu Fengmian would not spare him. In your dreams, Chu Fengmian coldly spat out 2 words. His figure moved again. A figure abruptly rushed towards Mo Wan and sent another punch flying towards him. Little bastard, I will die with you. Mo Wan roared and suddenly swallowed a pill. He knew that he was going to die, so he could only fight to the death. The pill entered his mouth. Mo Wan's body crazily swelled. His body was filled with endless power, as if it was going to break out of his body. 7 Ultimate Berserker Pill. Chu Fengmian muttered to himself when he saw Mo Wan's change. The 7 Ultimate Berserker Pill was a very special, profound grade pill. Once taken, it could stimulate all the power in a warrior's body for a short period of time. However, it could only last for less than 5 minutes, and once the effect wore off, it would only last for about 5 minutes. Once the pill disappeared, the warrior who took it would have his spiritual veins broken or die directly. It was definitely not a pill that should be taken only in a moment of life and death. This Mo Wan was planning to make a final desperate gamble. Boy, even if I die today, I will drag you to the grave with me. Mo Wan burst into laughter and suddenly rushed toward Chu Fengmian. Punch after punch, he suddenly bombarded Chu Fengmian. Although the power of each punch was not strong, it forced Chu Fengmian to have no time to spare. In an instant, Chu Fengmian understood Mo Wan's idea. He was trying to stall for time. Stall for time until the ancient dragon turtle came back. If the ancient dragon turtle came back, Chu Fengmian and Mo Wan would die in its hands. At that time, Chu Fengmian would really be dragged to the grave by Mo Wan. Damn it! Chu Fengmian's eyes showed some anger. Even if Mo Wan died, he wanted to drag Chu Fengmian with him. Fight! Chu Fengmian roared. The bloodline of the ancient battle dragon in his body was fully activated. The power of the 3 drops of essence blood burst out at the same time. Bang! 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 Chu Fengmian punched Mo Wan 3 times in a row. Suddenly, countless bones in Mo Wan's body were broken by Chu Fengmian's punch. However, under the effect of the 7 Ultimate Berserker Pill, Mo Wan, whose bones were broken, could still stand up. In these 5 minutes, Mo Wan was almost immortal. Boy, no matter how strong you are, you won't be able to leave in these 5 minutes. Mo Wan roared crazily. He no longer cared about his own life. The only thing he wanted now was to stall Chu Fengmian in the cave. When the ancient dragon turtle came back, he would let it kill Chu Fengmian. Roar! Outside the cave, a dragon roar sounded. It was the roar of the ancient dragon turtle. It seemed that the ancient dragon turtle had sensed that something was wrong in the cave and was ready to return. Die. Chapter 102. Under the impact of the punch. A large hole was smashed out of Mo Wan's chest. His heart was smashed to pieces by Chu Fengmian's punch. No matter how strong the sevenfold berserker pill was, Mo Wan's heart was smashed to pieces and he could not continue living. The moment Mo Wan fell, the corner of his mouth curled into a strange smile. Soon, you'll be accompanying me. Mo Wan laughed loudly. This was because he had already seen a huge figure blocking the entrance of the cave. The primordial dragon turtle had returned. The primordial dragon turtle had also noticed the commotion in the cave. It was in a good mood, but now it was irritated again. Roar! The primordial dragon turtle let out a long roar. The roar was full of dragon's roar, and endless dragon's aura spread out. Ordinary martial artists, even divine sea realm martial artists, could only tremble under the dragon's roar. Dragon's aura was extremely terrifying. However, this dragon might was completely useless against Chu Fengmian. Chu Fengmian's bloodline was the bloodline of the primordial battle dragon. Even though Chu Fengmian's bloodline was impure now, he was still a primordial battle dragon. Although his bloodline was not pure, the primordial battle dragon was precious. Chu Fengmian's primordial battle dragon bloodline was of a higher grade than the dragon turtle in front of him. Naturally, he would not be affected by the dragon's aura. A dragon turtle at the peak of the imperial wind realm. This is really terrifying. Chu Fengmian held the abundant, lush monument in his hand, and his mind was clear. He was now in such a dangerous situation because of the abundant, lush monument. However, if Chu Fengmian had to choose, he would not regret it. Opportunities were always in danger. If Chu Fengmian was afraid of danger, why would he cultivate? Wouldn't it be safer to be a mansion master in a remote place like Martial Forest City? To become an expert, one should not be afraid of danger. Let's fight. This primordial dragon turtle is the strongest opponent I have ever met in my life. It's time to fight with all my strength. There was no fear in Chu Fengmian's eyes, only endless fighting spirit. Even if he were to die, he would die standing. In his previous life, Chu Fengmian had no power and didn't even have the chance to die in battle. In this life, Chu Fengmian had to die in battle. Dragon fights in the wild. In Chu Fengmian's body, the ancient battle dragon's bloodline was flowing wildly. Even if the primordial war dragon died, it would have died in battle. Now, in this life and death situation, the bloodline of the primordial war dragon resonated with Chu Fengmian's thoughts at the same time. Roar! The primordial dragon turtle looked at Chu Fengmian in astonishment. Why did he feel an extremely ancient and noble aura from Chu Fengmian's body? Brat, who are you? Why do you have the primogenitor's bloodline? The ancient dragon turtle suddenly spoke. That voice was extremely deep, and it sounded more like the voice of an old man. The primordial dragon turtle had spoken. Chu Fengmian was startled when he heard the primordial dragon turtle speak. It was rumored that when demonic beasts reached a certain level, they would be able to speak the human language. The intelligence of these demonic beasts was no different from that of a warrior. Learning the human language was naturally not a difficult task. For example, Qing Wan could speak the human language. However, Qing Wan was the leader of all birds after all. It was not strange for it to speak the human language. However, the primordial dragon turtle was only at the peak of the wind-resisting realm. Generally speaking, only those who had reached the divine power realm would be able to speak the human language. Brat, you have not answered my question. Why do you have the primogenitor's bloodline? Seeing that Chu Fengmian did not answer, the primordial dragon turtle spoke again. Primogenitor's bloodline. Chu Fengmian suddenly understood after hearing the primordial dragon turtle's words. The reason why the primordial dragon turtle did not attack was because it sensed the ancient battle dragon's bloodline in Chu Fengmian. The ancient battle dragon was actually the current primogenitor of the real dragon clan. The primordial dragon turtle had inherited the real dragon's bloodline. It could be said that the ancient battle dragon was indeed the primogenitor's existence to the primordial dragon turtle. It doesn't matter where my bloodline came from. Chu Fengmian's eyes flickered as he suddenly spoke. Primordial dragon turtle, do you want to break through the wind-resisting realm and step into the divine power realm? Oh, step into the divine power realm? The primordial dragon turtle spoke as if it was laughing loudly. The divine power realm is a realm that all demonic beasts want to step into. Naturally, I want to do so too. Brat, do you think that you can help me break through to the divine power realm? The primordial dragon turtle's intelligence was not lower than a martial artist's. He understood the meaning behind Chu Fengmian's words in an instant. His eyes were looking at Chu Fengmian with a faint smile. He was extremely curious about Chu Fengmian. The Chu Fengmian before him was obviously a human. However, he had the bloodline of the ancient battle dragon. The purity of the bloodline almost made him think that the Chu Fengmian before him was transformed from an ancient battle dragon. It was just that Chu Fengmian's bloodline was still a little thin. In addition, Chu Fengmian's strength was too weak. That was why he did not make a mistake. Now that Chu Fengmian suddenly spoke and said that he could help him break through to the divine power realm, the primordial dragon turtle was even more surprised. The divine power realm was not that easy to break through. Stepping into the divine power realm meant that one's spirit could connect with divinity. This was a completely different realm. It could be said to be a watershed compared to the divine power realm. No matter how strong the primordial dragon turtle was now, he was still a great demonic beast. However, once he broke through to the divine power realm, the primordial dragon turtle would be in existence like a demonic god. Their statuses were different. Even many countries would have to treat them with respect. There were countless demonic beasts that wanted to break through to the divine power realm. However, less than 1 in 100 were able to break through. As long as you submit to me, I can guarantee that I can help you step into the divine power realm. Chu Fengmian looked at the primordial dragon turtle and said proudly, a body refinement realm martial artist was able to make a terrifying, great demonic beast at the peak of the wind resisting realm submit to him. This was simply a pipe dream. However, Chu Fengmian had spoken just like that. You should know that my bloodline is enough for you to break through. The strength of the primordial dragon turtle clan could be determined just by their bloodline. The purer their bloodline, the stronger their strength would be. A primordial dragon turtle with a truly pure bloodline would not be any weaker than a true dragon in terms of strength. If one wanted to increase the bloodline of the primordial dragon turtle, the blood in Chu Fengmian's body would be the most useful. It was because of this that Chu Fengmian dared to make such a request. The temptation of the divine power realm was not something that all demonic beasts could resist. Chapter 103. You want me to submit to a little brat like you? The primordial dragon turtle looked at Chu Fengmian. His face was very lively as he revealed a gale smile. You're just a junior, but you're talking big. You think you can help me break through to the divine power realm? The divine power realm was a dividing line. It was a realm that countless demonic beasts couldn't break through in their lifetime. Now, Chu Fengmian suddenly said that he could help the ancient dragon turtle break through to the divine power realm. The ancient dragon turtle didn't believe it at all. If it wasn't for the fact that Chu Fengmian had the bloodline of the ancient battle dragon, he wouldn't have bothered to talk nonsense with Chu Fengmian. You don't believe me? You can give it a try. Chu Fengmian didn't say anything else. A drop of blood slowly flowed out from his fingertip. The blood was golden in color. Blood of the true dragon? No, this is the blood of the ancient battle dragon. Looking at the golden blood on Chu Fengmian's finger, the ancient dragon turtle could feel that the bloodline in his body was yearning for this drop of blood. This drop of blood was the purest blood of the ancient battle dragon. Although it wasn't the core blood, the energy it emitted was enough to make the ancient dragon turtle intoxicated. Ancient dragon turtle, I'll give you this drop of blood. Chu Fengmian glanced at the ancient dragon turtle. Chu Fengmian flicked his finger, and a drop of golden blood flew towards the ancient dragon turtle. Seeing the drop of golden blood flying towards him, the ancient dragon turtle quickly opened his mouth and swallowed the drop of golden blood, refining it. Just this tiny drop of golden blood was enough to make the ancient dragon turtle feel that his own bloodline had become a little purer. If he could get more golden blood, he might really break through to the divine power realm. Ancient dragon turtle, you should understand now. As long as you submit, I, Chu Fengmian, swear that I'll let you enter the divine power realm. Chu Fengmian stared at the ancient dragon turtle and said calmly, This is your last chance. Without my help, you won't be able to break through in your lifetime. Chu Fengmian's words were engraved in the ancient dragon turtle's heart. Chu Fengmian's blood did let the ancient dragon turtle see the hope of breaking through to the divine power realm. Chu Fengmian's words weren't wrong. This could be considered his last chance. The ancient dragon turtle was actually starting to age. Although its body had not aged, it was no longer young. It was almost impossible for him to rely on his own strength to break through to the divine force realm. Now, this was indeed his last chance. But if he, a great demon at the peak of the wind-controlling realm, had to submit to a mere body-refining realm martial artist, he would be extremely unwilling. His former master was Grand Emperor Richlush, the founder of the Kingdom of Martial Victories. The current Chu Fengmian was still too weak, but he didn't want to give up on this opportunity. No demon beast could resist the temptation of the Spirit Sea realm, and he was no exception. Once a demonic beast reached the Spirit Sea realm, it would be able to speak human language and even transform into a human. It would be a demon god instead of a demonic beast. Kid, as long as you're willing to help me break through to the divine force realm, I'm willing to sign a contract with you. I will help you cultivate to the wind-resisting realm. At the same time, in this Wushang country, I can also guarantee your safety. This condition is already not low, right? The primordial dragon turtle rolled his eyes and said he was extremely unwilling to submit to Chu Fengmian, so he could only use a delaying tactic. The only way is to submit. Chu Fengmian looked at the primordial dragon turtle and said with a much colder tone, "You're just a primordial dragon turtle at the peak of the wind-resisting realm. If it wasn't because my strength is too weak, why would I let you be my subordinate? Now, I'm giving you one last chance. Submit, and I guarantee you that you can step into the divine sea realm. Other than that, there's no other choice." Chu Fengmian said coldly. If it was his previous life, a primordial dragon turtle at the peak of the wind-resisting realm was nothing. Even the servants of the Sword Dao Master were experts who had reached the divine force realm. Letting the primordial dragon turtle be his servant was already giving him a chance. I can give you countless elixirs, spiritual herbs, martial techniques, whatever you want, I can give you. The primordial dragon turtle said hurriedly. As long as you change your condition, no matter what it is, I'll agree to it. How about it? There's only one way. Submit or never step into the divine force realm. You can choose for yourself. Chu Fengmian said coldly and ignored the primordial dragon turtle. He was just giving him one last chance to choose. Chu Fengmian's hand was holding the primordial dragon turtle's vital point. His blood was the only chance for the primordial dragon turtle to break through. Lad, the primordial dragon turtle wanted to say something, but when he saw Chu Fengmian's expression, he understood. Chu Fengmian's words were dead. There was no room for discussion. He wanted to discuss with Chu Fengmian, but Chu Fengmian's attitude made it impossible for him to do so. The primordial dragon turtle was extremely unwilling to submit to Yi Shiwen. However, the drop of primordial battle dragon blood had ignited his originally silent heart. The divine force realm was right in front of him. How could he resist the temptation of the divine force realm? His lifespan was approaching the end. If he didn't break through, he might die in a few hundred years. This was his last chance. He had to grab it. This lad is really stubborn. Damn it. Isn't it just submitting? In the past, I could submit to Feng Rao. Now I can also submit to this lad. As long as I can step into the divine force realm, this is nothing. The primordial dragon turtle cursed in his heart. In front of a divine force realm expert, he could bear with it even if he had to submit. A cultivator's lifespan wasn't long. Even a cultivator who had reached the divine force realm would only have a lifespan of 1,000 years. 1,000 years in exchange for him to break through to the divine force realm. This wasn't a bad deal. All right, lad, you're good. I'll submit to you as long as you can help me step into the divine force realm. The primordial dragon turtle shouted. I've already agreed to submit. You should give me more primordial battle dragon blood. The primordial battle dragon blood was the key to his breakthrough. As long as he could obtain more primordial battle dragon blood and improve his bloodline, it wouldn't be difficult for him to step into the divine force realm. Wait a minute. Let's sign a contract first. Chapter 104. Dragon God Oath. Seeing the ancient dragon-shaped contract, the ancient era's dragon tortoise was shocked. Then it spoke. The oath came from the true dragon clan. It was the most ancient oath. The oath had a binding effect on all existences with the bloodline of the true dragon. Chu Fengyan could not resist it, and neither could the ancient dragon turtle. The dragon god oath has been lost for thousands of years. I only heard about it when I was young. This kid actually knows it. Could it be that one of his parents is an ancient battle dragon? The ancient dragon turtle looked at Chu Fengyan and thought. The ancient battle dragon blood essence in Chu Fengyan's body was too strange. Even the ancient dragon turtle could not understand it, especially Chu Fengyan, who knew the oath that had been lost for thousands of years. This kid can't be the illegitimate son of some old ancestor of the dragon clan, right? Such a pure bloodline. The ancient dragon turtle could not help but think. Only the illegitimate son of an old ancestor of the dragon clan who had lived for tens of thousands of years would be as strange as Chu Fengyan. Let's sign the contract. Chu Fengyan did not have the mood to care about the ancient dragon turtle's thoughts. He just said calmly, it was not that Chu Fengyan did not believe in the ancient dragon turtle, but the people of the 9 regions were sinister. Chu Fengyan had to be cautious. Otherwise, the ancient era's dragon tortoise would have betrayed and killed Chu Fengyan right after he helped it reach the divine power realm. What a cautious kid. Hearing Chu Fengyan's words, the ancient dragon turtle could not help but say. He did have such a thought. As long as Chu Fengyan helped him reach the divine power realm, Chu Fengyan would be useless. Even if he did not kill Chu Fengyan, he would definitely leave. How would he be willing to be Chu Fengyan's servant? Fine, I'll sign it. The ancient dragon turtle snorted and spat out a mouthful of spiritual energy. It shone on the dragon god oath. Immediately, 2 names were engraved on the dragon god oath. Then, the dragon god oath split into 2. One half entered Chu Fengyan's body, and the other half entered the ancient dragon turtle's body. On the contract, it was written that Chu Fengyan had to help the ancient dragon turtle break through to the divine power realm within 3 years. As for the ancient era's dragon tortoise, it would serve Chu Fengyan and assist him when he was around. After the contract was set, Chu Fengyan's worries were finally resolved. Brat, it's time to give me the blood of the primordial battle dragon. The primordial dragon turtle hastily shouted. He was already too demanding for that kind of feeling. That kind of feeling was enough to completely change his bloodline. The divine force realm was already very close. He couldn't wait any longer. Primordial dragon turtle, since you've already submitted, you should change the way you address me in the future. Chu Fengyan glanced at the ancient dragon turtle and said coldly, at the very least, you should address him as young master. Young master? The primordial dragon turtle was stunned for a moment before bursting into laughter. That's all right, young master. Since you've already agreed, you should keep your word. To the ancient dragon turtle, it was merely a form of address. Naturally, he would not care about it. All right, seeing that the primordial dragon turtle was so sensible, Chu Fengyan naturally wouldn't go back on his word. On Chu Fengyan's fingertip, 1 drop, 2 drops, 3 drops, drop by drop, the blood of the primordial battle dragon was condensed by Chu Fengyan. In just 5 minutes, he had condensed 10 drops of primordial battle dragon blood. Go! He pointed his finger and flew towards the primordial dragon turtle. Ha ha, so much blood. The primordial dragon turtle burst into laughter and hurriedly devoured all the golden blood. These 10 drops of primordial battle dragon blood were enough to raise his bloodline to a new level. In just a few minutes, the primordial dragon turtle could feel that there were some changes in his cultivation realm. The divine force realm was no longer that unattainable. Instead, it was close at hand. Young master, I still need more primordial battle dragon blood. The primordial dragon turtle shouted. Humph, these 10 drops of primordial battle dragon blood are enough for you to refine for a while. Chu Fengyan said coldly. The level of your bloodline is still too low. If you raise it too much at once, your body won't be able to take it. It wasn't that Chu Fumian didn't want to give the primordial dragon turtle some blood essence. The primordial dragon turtle's bloodline only had some real dragon bloodline. The current real dragon clan was just the descendants of the primordial battle dragon clan. Their bloodline wasn't pure to begin with. If Chu Fumian were to give the primordial dragon turtle too much blood essence at once, it might burst. Yes. Hearing Chu Fumian's words, the primordial dragon turtle blushed. He knew that too. However, when he thought that the divine force realm was close at hand, he couldn't help but feel a little overwhelmed. Besides, do you think it's that easy to condense the primordial battle dragon blood essence? Condensing 10 drops is already the limit. It will take a long time to recover. Chu Fumian said snappily. It wasn't an easy task for him to condense the primordial battle dragon blood essence. After all, Chu Fumian wasn't the primordial battle dragon. He could only purify the bloodline in his body and give the primordial dragon turtle the blood essence. Take a long time to recover? Please don't. The primordial dragon turtle shouted anxiously. Chu Fumian said that it would take a long time to recover. Who knew how long it would take? If Chu Fumian dragged it out for a year or so, he wouldn't be able to wait any longer. All right, young master. I have some elixirs that can recover spiritual energy. I'm not sure if it's effective for you. The primordial dragon turtle said anxiously. Elixirs? Where is it? Hearing the primordial dragon turtle's words, Chu Fumian's face changed. What he needed now was elixirs. It's in the deepest part of the cave. Young master, please come in. The primordial dragon turtle replied and brought Chu Fumian to the deepest part of the cave. In the deepest part of the cave, there were layers upon layers of jade bottles, spiritual weapons, and spiritual herbs. All of them were piled up messily, and there was a huge area. Young master, these things belong to those who are seeking death. I have no use for them, so I pile them up here. Young master, you can use whatever you want. The primordial dragon turtle said heartily. Now that his bloodline had improved, he was in a good mood. He naturally wouldn't care about these worldly possessions. Moreover, those elixirs that were useful to warriors weren't very useful to him. Chapter 105. How many people did this primordial dragon turtle kill? Chu Fumian couldn't help but think as he looked at the items on the ground. However, after thinking about it, the primordial dragon turtle had probably stayed on this deserted island for thousands of years. This deserted island had always been the testing site of the Wuxing Academy. Moreover, there would occasionally be some disciples who would come here to train and kill demonic beasts. There would always be a few ignorant people who would die at the hands of the primordial dragon turtle. These items should belong to those people. Chu Fumian glanced at the jade bottles and roughly divided them. There were probably more than 100,000 energy-gathering pills in these jade bottles. Apart from that, there wasn't anything else of value. However, these 100,000 energy-gathering pills were a huge fortune. It was enough to satisfy the thirst for spiritual energy in Chu Fumian's blood. Since he started cultivating the battle dragon skill, Chu Fumian had always felt that his body was constantly thirsting for spiritual energy. It was as if he was a person who couldn't get enough. Chu Fumian also understood why this battle dragon skill could only be cultivated by martial artists with divine veins. Without the divine veins constantly replenishing his spiritual power, Chu Fumian would have been sucked dry by the battle dragon art. But even so, the divine veins could only maintain Chu Fumian's body. They couldn't obtain spiritual energy to cultivate. If he wanted to cultivate, he would have to obtain countless elixirs, more than 100,000 energy-gathering pills. It's barely enough to set up a spirit-gathering array. Chu Fumian looked at the energy-gathering pills and said in a low voice. Chu Fumian took out all the energy-gathering pills, opened them, and placed them on the ground. When these energy-gathering pills were set up, it vaguely looked like a magic array. Cloth! Chu Fumian let out a soft cry. Countless chi-amassing pills turned into pure spiritual energy with a bang. The spiritual energy circled around Chu Fumian and turned into a long dragon of spiritual energy. As Chu Fumian pointed his finger, the long dragon of spiritual energy merged into Chu Fumian's body. This spirit-gathering array was one of the 7 major sects, the Alpha Hall's magic array. After this spirit-gathering array was set up, it could extract the spiritual energy from the elixirs and turn it into a long dragon of spiritual energy. The spiritual energy of this long dragon of spiritual energy was extremely pure. Generally speaking, the Alpha Hall would use this spirit-gathering array to help their disciples cultivate. It was much faster than refining elixirs alone. However, this spirit-gathering array required at least 100,000 spirit-gathering pills to be set up. Therefore, it required hundreds of Alpha Hall disciples to train together before it could be set up. Otherwise, the strong spiritual energy in the long dragon would be enough to break a cultivator's body. However, this was only true for ordinary martial artists. For Chu Fengyan, now that he had cultivated the battle dragon art, his body could be considered to be hiding a huge appetite king. Chu Fengmister's blood essence, blood's essences, blood skill tests, blood TS out of the 129,600 drops of ancient war dragon's blood essence. Chu Fengyan had only managed to condense 3 drops. No matter how much spiritual energy there was, it was impossible for Chu Fengyan's body to burst. Chu Fengyan needed all the spiritual energy. Condense. The long dragon of spiritual energy was completely devoured by Chu Fengyan. Suddenly, countless pure spiritual energy merged into the shadow of the ancient battle dragon in his body. Chu Fengyan could feel that the 4th and 5th drops of blood essence were about to condense at the same time. Great! I'll take this opportunity to condense 2 more drops of blood essence. Then, I'll have more power to protect myself in the Martial Victory Academy. Chu Fengyan was overjoyed. This was an unexpected gain. Chu Fengyan didn't know how many spirit-gathering elixirs he needed to accumulate. Now, he had obtained the ancient dragon turtles collection. It was enough to condense 2 drops of blood essence in one go. Bang! Bang! From Chu Fengyan's body, 2 huge waves of spiritual energy burst out. His cultivation level had also risen by 2 levels, reaching the 7th level of the body refinement stage. Now, as Chu Fengyan's realm was getting higher and higher, the blood essence of the ancient battle dragon was less and less. However, Chu Fengyan could feel that his strength had actually increased by more than 10 times compared to before. Now, there were already 5 drops of blood essence of the ancient battle dragon in Chu Fengyan's body. All of them were activated. Chu Fengyan believed that he could fight against a 5th level or 6th level divine C-realm martial artist. With Chu Fengyan's age, this kind of strength was simply terrifying to the extreme. It seems that it's not an easy task to feed this ancient battle dragon. Chu Fengyan's joy was not over yet. He stood up and looked at the empty bottles. He couldn't help but smile bitterly. More than 100,000 spirit-gathering elixirs were enough for Chu Fengyan to condense 2 drops of blood essence of the ancient battle dragon. If it wasn't for such a huge fortune that came out of nowhere, Chu Fengyan would have needed a longer time to break through. However, now that Chu Fengyan had arrived at the Martial Victory Academy, it was much easier to obtain resources in the Martial Victory Academy compared to the outside world. The time for the second test should be ending soon. Chu Fengyan thought to himself. If he remembered correctly, it was already the 7th day. Looking at the time outside, it was less than 4 hours before the end of the test. It's time to leave, Chu Fengyan muttered to himself. He came to the Martial Victory Academy to participate in the test so that he could enter the Martial Victory Academy. This test could not be delayed. Young master, you're out? The ancient dragon turtle had been guarding outside the cave. When he saw Chu Fengyan coming out, he asked. The ancient dragon turtle knew that Chu Fengyan was cultivating in the cave. Therefore, he was guarding outside in case someone came to disturb Chu Fengyan. It seems that the blood essence has made your bloodline much purer. Chu Fengyan glanced at the ancient dragon turtle and said with a smile. Although the primordial dragon turtle had broken through, its current strength was more than twice as strong as before. He was not too far away from breaking through to the Divine Sea realm. Especially on the armor of the ancient dragon turtle, there was a dragon mark that was about to appear. This was the symbol of the ancient dragon turtle's bloodline being purified. His bloodline was closer to that of the ancient battle dragon. Chapter 106. The ancient dragon turtle clan inherited the bloodline of the true dragon. If their bloodline reached the limit, it was rumored that they could ascend and become a true dragon. With the help of Chu Fengmian's ancient battle dragon blood essence, this ancient dragon turtle was showing signs of transforming into a true dragon. When the dragon patterns on its shell were completely condensed, it would be the time for it to ascend and become a true dragon. Ascending and becoming a true dragon was definitely something that every ancient dragon turtle dreamed of. Right now, the ancient dragon turtle wasn't just hoping to step into the divine power realm. He was also hoping to ascend to the Dragon King realm. With your current bloodline, you should be able to reach the divine power realm in less than half a year, right? Chu Fengmian glanced at the ancient dragon turtle and said, I came to this deserted island to participate in Wuxing Academy's examination. It's time for me to leave. These 10 drops of blood essence are for you first. When you're about to break through to the divine power realm, you can devour these 10 drops of blood essence to help you break through to the divine power realm. Chu Fengmian said. He subdued the ancient dragon turtle for 2 reasons. Firstly, he didn't have a good choice back then. Secondly, he needed a trump card. With the ancient dragon turtle's realm, if it could reach the divine power realm, it would be an invincible existence in Wuxing Academy. Even if there was danger, Chu Fengmian could ask the ancient dragon turtle for help. This is a jade talisman that I made. If you're in danger, you can crush this jade talisman and I'll rush over in time. The ancient dragon turtle muttered, and a jade talisman fell into Chu Fengmian's hand. He was very glad that he decided to submit to Chu Fengmian back then. He originally wanted to use Chu Fengmian's ancient battle dragon blood essence to help him break through to the divine power realm. However, the purity of Chu Fengmian's bloodline was beyond his expectations. Not only was it enough to help him break through to the divine power realm, but it was also enough to let him see the hope of becoming a true dragon. With such great benefits following Chu Fengmian, he didn't care if Chu Fengmian was a body-refining realm cultivator. Just the bloodline in Chu Fengmian's body was enough to make him submit to him. All right, Chu Fengmian took the jade talisman and nodded. Cultivate in peace. Come and look for me when you break through to the divine power realm. Chu Fengmian said. With a move of his feet, his figure flashed, and he left the mountain cave. He quickly ran towards the gathering point. Chu Fengmian did not expect to encounter such an ancient dragon turtle after coming to this deserted island. With the help of the primordial dragon turtle, Chu Fengmian could borrow its power even if he were to run into danger. However, unless he encountered a life and death crisis, Chu Fengmian absolutely did not plan to use the ancient dragon turtle's power. A martial artist had to experience countless dangers before they could grow. If Chu Fengmian wanted to become a true powerhouse, he needed to rely on himself and not others. 7 days later, noon, near the gathering point, there were already countless cultivators waiting there. The expressions of many of these people were filled with confidence. Clearly, they were confident that they would have the chance to enter the top 100. There were also some warriors whose faces were extremely dejected. Clearly, they had admitted defeat. Chu Fengmian knew Lin Maju, Chu Wuyin, and Ao Wuming. They had also arrived at the gathering point. The 3 of them stood at the front, and their faces were filled with confidence. In these 7 days, the 3 of them had killed countless powerful demonic beasts. They had also killed many people who wanted to besiege them. Now, all of them were filled with confidence and wanted to fight for the first place in the demonic beast hunting assessment. Although there was no reward for the first place for the peerless geniuses like them, who would not want to suppress others. Lin Maju, consider yourself lucky that you did not die in the hands of the Green Alliance. When Ao Wuming saw Lin Maju, he could not help but say, the 2 of them had some enmity between them. Naturally, they would mock each other when they met. How could those trash from the Green Alliance kill me? Lin Maju laughed. The strongest martial artist from the Green Alliance was only around the 5th level of the body refining realm. With Lin Maju's strength, he could fight against 10 of them. Even if he could not defeat them, it would not be a problem for him to escape. Those martial artists from the Green Alliance were not a threat to him. But those guys from the Green Alliance are strange. After 2 days, they have disappeared. I wonder what Chang Kong is plotting. As Lin Maju spoke, he was also a little surprised. The disciple from the Green Alliance seemed to have disappeared from this deserted island after the second day. There were no traces of them. They must have gone to deal with Chu Fengyan. A.O. Wuming said, while looking around. The assessment is about to end. Why is Chu Fengyan not here yet? Did he die in the hands of the Green Alliance? No way. With the strength of those martial artists from the Green Alliance, it is impossible for them to kill Chu Fengyan. Lin Maju shook his head and said, he had fought with Chu Fengyan before. Naturally, he knew Chu Fengyan's strength. Even if all the martial artists from the Green Alliance went after him, he was confident that he could escape. With Chu Fengyan's strength, there was no pressure at all. He could escape unscathed. The Green Alliance might not be able to deal with Chu Fengyan, but with the power of the Cheng family and family Chu, it would not be difficult for them to secretly deal with Chu Fengyan. Chu Wuyin, who had been silent, suddenly spoke. There was a hint of worry in her words. The assessment was about to end. Almost all the martial artists had gathered. The only thing missing was the martial artists from the Green Alliance and Chu Fengyan, the Cheng family and family Chu. Hearing this, Lin Maju was silent for a moment. It was indeed impossible for those disciples from the Green Alliance to deal with Chu Fengyan. But if it was the Cheng family and family Chu, it would be a different story. These two families had deep roots in the Wuxing Academy. They could cover the sky with one hand. If they wanted to deal with Chu Fengyan, it would not take much effort. He didn't need much strength at all. He could crush Chu Fengyan to death with one hand. If it was really the Cheng family and family Chu, they would have planned to kill Chu Fengyan on this deserted island during the assessment. Maybe they could really do it. Maybe it's true. Chu Fengyan is too arrogant. He has offended the Cheng family and family Chu. If he offends either of these two families, he will be doomed. A.O. Wuming shook his head and said, he was known as one of the 4 geniuses of the extreme capital, and the family behind him was not weak. Chapter 107. It was almost noon. Above the sky, 5 arcs slowly descended. On the ark, a few elders and some outer sect disciples alighted from the ark. One of the elders was the white-haired old man who had sent everyone to the deserted island. He was also the chief examiner of the second test, the demonic beast test. He jumped down from the arks and looked at the crowd gathered around him. He couldn't help but frown. Now, there were only about 100 people in the crowd, not even 200. One should know that the arks had sent a total of 500 people to the deserted island. Not one more, not one less. Now, there were only so many people left. Every year, in this demonic beast hunting assessment, there would be some warriors who died in the mouths of demonic beasts due to their lack of strength. But at least 300 people should be able to survive. Now, there were only about 100 people left. This result was unbelievable. But now, there was still about 2 hours until the end of the assessment, so he was not in a hurry. After all, there must be some warriors who had not rushed back yet. Only at the very end would all the warriors return. Some warriors, in order to fight for the last chance, would hunt demonic beasts until the very last moment. Now, the warriors who returned to the rendezvous point were those who were confident that they had entered the top 100, such as Lin Maju and A.O. Wuming. Otherwise, there were those who did not have any hope in the first place and gave up early. Whoosh! Whoosh! After a while, a few figures rushed out from the forest and returned to the rendezvous point. From time to time, some warriors would return. Whoosh! A figure flashed by. Chu Fengyan also jumped out from the forest and returned to the rendezvous point without attracting too much attention. He stood beside Chu Wuyin, Lin Maju, and the others. Chu Fengyan, you actually came back alive? A.O. Wuming was shocked when he saw Chu Fengyan suddenly appear. He originally thought that Chu Fengyan might have been killed by the Cheng family and family Chu on this deserted island. But now, Chu Fengyan's sudden appearance made him completely wrong. Chu Fengyan had returned. It seemed like Chu Fengyan's strength had increased in the past few days. Chu Fengyan's cultivation level had reached the 7th level of the body refining stage, the same level as him. In just 7 days, Chu Fengmian had actually advanced by 2 levels. He was truly a freak. Seeing that Chu Fengmian had returned, Chu Wuyin's face revealed a hint of joy. He couldn't help but sigh in relief. It seems that the Cheng clan and family Chu may be able to do whatever they want in Wusheng Academy, but they don't dare to interfere with the sect entrance examination. No, the Cheng family and family Chu are all dead. Chu Fengmian chuckled. What? Hearing Chu Fengmian's words, Chu Wuyin was slightly absent-minded. Seeing Chu Fengmian return safely, she naturally thought that perhaps the Cheng family Chu did not send anyone to deal with Chu Fengmian. After all, it would be as easy as crushing an ant for the 2 great clans to deal with a new disciple like Chu Fengmian. However, listening to Chu Fengmian's words, it turned out that the Cheng clan and family Chu had sent people to deal with Chu Fengmian, but they were all killed by Chu Fengmian? Impossible. The Cheng clan and family Chu are all experts. It would be a piece of cake for them to deal with a body-refining stage martial artist like you. Ao Wuming couldn't help but doubt Chu Fengmian's words. People like them knew more about the Cheng clan and family Chu's power than ordinary disciples. These 2 great clans had already joined Wusheng Academy when it was founded. Their power was far beyond everyone's imagination. If you don't believe me, then let's wait and see. Chu Fengmian didn't say much and closed his eyes to concentrate. Now that Chu Fengmian had just broken through, the spiritual energy in his body was still a little unstable. In these 2 hours, Chu Fengmian could use this time to familiarize himself with a new power in his body. Time passed by slowly. The time for the assessment had come to an end. All the martial artists had returned to the assembly point. But now, there were only 203 martial artists in total. Only 2/5 of the total number of martial artists were present. 3/5 of the martial artists were not present. Something's not right. Why is the second young master of the Cheng clan not here? The white-haired elder glanced at the crowd and suddenly exclaimed in shock. The second young master of the Cheng clan was present in this assessment. He still remembered that the Cheng clan had specially instructed him to keep an eye on Cheng Kong to prevent any accident from happening. The white-haired elder naturally didn't think that anything could happen to Cheng Kong, so he didn't care. However, Cheng Kong's sudden disappearance made the white-haired elder panic for a moment. If Cheng Kong really had an accident during the second assessment, the Cheng clan would definitely take revenge on the white-haired elder. With the Cheng clan's power, it would be a piece of cake for them to deal with an outer elder like him. Cheng Kong really isn't here. Those Green Alliance disciples don't seem to be here either. What's going on? Ao Wuming glanced around and also found something amiss. He wasn't the only one. Almost all the martial artists had discovered something. None of the Green Alliance disciples, led by Cheng Kong, returned. It was as if the 100 or so Green Alliance disciples had all disappeared at the same time. Could what Chu Fengmian said be true? The Cheng clan and family Chu came to deal with him and were even killed by him? Did these Green Alliance disciples all die at Chu Fengmian's hands? Ao Wuming couldn't help but think of Chu Fengmian when he recalled what Chu Fengmian had said. Chu Fengmian had said that he would know in a while. Was he referring to Cheng Kong? Chu Fengmian, do you know anything about Cheng Kong? Ao Wuming asked softly. He was extremely curious about what was going on with Cheng Kong. Until now, Cheng Kong still hadn't appeared. It was enough to conclude that something must have happened to Cheng Kong on this deserted island. Moreover, it was very likely that Cheng Kong had already died on this deserted island. However, who would be able to kill Cheng Kong under the protection of more than 100 Green Alliance disciples? Ao Wuming couldn't do it. Lin Maju and Chu Wuyin couldn't do it either. Chapter 108. Oh, that Cheng Kong and the people from the Green Alliance? I've seen them before. Hearing Ao Wuming's words, Chu Fengmian revealed a strange smile. I saw that group of people. They seemed to be hunting an extremely powerful demonic beast. Perhaps they all died in the mouth of the demonic beast. Chu Fengmian was right. Those Green Alliance martial artists and Cheng Kong did not die in Chu Fengmian's hands. The one that killed them was the ancient dragon turtle. Chu Fengmian had merely witnessed the scene. Although the demonic cores that the Green Alliance disciples obtained were all in Chu Fengmian's hands, they could be considered as Chu Fengmian picked them up. Chu Fengmian's words were calm. But to Ao Wuming, it was absolutely chilling. Died in the mouth of a demonic beast. Coincidentally seen? How could there be such a coincidence? Moreover, with Cheng Kong's relationship with Chu Fengyan, it was already good enough that the Green Alliance did not cause trouble for Chu Fengyan. How could Chu Fengyan coincidentally see them? Seeing Chu Fengyan's half-smile, Ao Wuming's heart turned cold. Although Chu Fengyan seemed to be friendly, after witnessing Chu Fengyan's strength, Ao Wuming understood. Chu Fengyan was definitely not a kind person. He did not continue asking. Cheng Kong's life and death had nothing to do with him. He was just curious. Lin Maju and Chu Wuin's eyes were also thoughtful. They looked at Chu Fengyan, but did not speak. It's time. An outer sect disciple beside the white-haired elder reminded softly. All right, ring the bell. The white-haired elder glanced at the crowd and nodded. No matter how many unforeseen events had happened, the rules of the assessment could not be changed. Dong! A bell rang, signifying the end of the demonic beast hunting assessment. All martial artists, line up in order and come forward one by one to submit your demonic cores. These demonic cores can be exchanged for Wu Sheng Academy contribution points. Everyone who comes forward will be able to obtain their own identity badge. As the white-haired elder spoke, an outer sect disciple beside him took out their identity badges. A cultivator stepped forward and took out about a dozen monster cores from his storage bag. More than 10 elixirs were considered a large number for martial artists who had yet to reach the body refining realm. A total of 110 contribution points. The white-haired elder took a glance and said aloud, "Name, Fong Ming." The warrior replied, "Take your identity card and wait at the side." As soon as the white-haired elder spoke, the outer court disciple beside him handed over an identity token. Fong Ming's name and the number 110 were written on it. 110 contribution points. Chu Fengyan glanced at those Yao cores and suddenly understood. The value of those monster cores was about 300 or so qi gathering pills. It seemed that this demonic beast hunting assessment was actually a means to accumulate wealth. He was buying monster cores at 1/3 of the price. However, in order to pass the test, countless warriors would not hide their contribution points. The contribution points given could be considered as compensation. Next, following the white-haired elder's words, another cultivator walked forward and took out all the beast cores from the storage bags. Everyone walked forward one by one, but they weren't too surprised. "Next, I'll do it." Suddenly, a voice rang out. Lin Maju, who was beside Chu Fengyan, strode forward. "It's Lin Maju. Are the 4 geniuses finally going up? I wonder how many monster cores Lin Maju will have." Although countless people were curious about who would be the one to take the first place, almost everyone was clear about the answer. Only the 4 geniuses and Chu Fengyan had a chance of getting first place. The rest of the people did not even have the qualifications to participate in the competition. Whoosh! Lin Maju opened his storage bag, and dozens of monster cores rolled out. This number was not considered a lot. For someone of Lin Maju's status, the crowd felt that dozens of elixirs were too little. However, in the next moment, when they noticed the power of the monster cores, their expressions changed drastically. All of them are monster cores above the 6th level of the body, refining realm. How terrifying! Lin Maju actually hunted so many monster cores above the 6th level of the body, refining realm. There are even a few monster cores from 8th level of the body, refining realm. Some of the onlooking warriors were shocked. The strength of a monster core was even stronger than a warrior of the same level. However, Lin Maju was able to hunt monster cores at the 8th level of the body, refining realm. Even the white-haired elder was slightly surprised. After calculating for a while, he suddenly opened his mouth and said, "That's right. A total of 3,700 contribution points." When the white-haired elder spoke, the crowd was in an uproar. Even many of the outer court disciples looked at Lin Maju in disbelief. 3,700 contribution points. This number was already higher than many best newcomer kings. This year's 4 geniuses are really terrifying. Just Lin Maju alone has surpassed many newcomer kings. Fortunately, Only 3 of the 4 geniuses of the extreme capital came this time. The family Chu Beiji didn't come. Otherwise, this year's batch would be the strongest batch in 100 years. You can't say that. Although Chu Beiji isn't in this year's batch, there's still Chu Fengyan. Chu Beiji was defeated by Chu Fengyan during the ARC assessment. I heard that Chu Fengyan won by luck because Chu Beiji was careless. Luck? Even if it's luck, why don't you try beating Chu Beiji again? A few outer court disciples were chatting with each other. In the previous batch that they participated in the assessment, there had never been such a monstrous genius. Lin Maju remained calm when he saw everyone's envious gaze. If it was in the past, he might have been proud. However, after being defeated by Chu Fengyan, Lin Maju understood. Among his peers, he wasn't necessarily the best. What right did he have to be proud of? Lin Maju walked to the side and looked at Chu Fengyan a few more times, as if he was also waiting for Chu Fengyan's results. When Chu Fengyan saw this, he just smiled casually and didn't say anything. Lin Maju's strategy was the same as Chu Fengyan's. He only chose to hunt some high-level demonic beasts. Although 3,700 contribution points was not bad, Chu Fengyan was definitely going to take first place this time. Chu Fengyan's eyes revealed a hint of a smile. Since he had come to the Martial Victory Academy, he might as well make a name for himself and shock the Academy. Chapter 109. The next person who walked up was a familiar face to Chu Fengyan. Su Hu. He was the martial artist who was chased by the Green Alliance and was saved by Chu Fengyan. He followed Chu Fengyan and hunted many Green Alliance martial artists. Chu Fengyan gave him a portion of a monster course. Later, when Chu Fengyan entered the cave and saw the primordial dragon turtle coming out, Su Hu hurriedly ran away. He couldn't be blamed. After all, the primordial dragon turtle came out. If he ran a little later, he would have been eaten by the primordial dragon turtle. Now that he saw it, it seemed that Su Hu had also completed the assessment. He wondered what kind of result Su Hu would get. 2,100 points. After checking Su Hu's monster cores, the white-haired elder said, "So high. This Su Hu actually has such a high number of points." Many people couldn't help but take a few more glances at Su Hu. Although these points couldn't be compared to Lin Maju, it was enough to rank him in the top 5 among all the martial artists who had been tested. In the end, it was very likely that he would rank in the top 10. This result was already good enough. If it were some weaker newcomers, Su Hu would at least rank in the top 3. Hearing this result, Su Hu's face was filled with joy. Obviously, he was also very satisfied with this result. He walked down and saw Chu Fengyan at first glance. He walked over to Chu Fengyan. "Congratulations on this result." Chu Fengyan saw Su Hu walking over and said with a smile. Su Hu had a martial heart. Chu Fengyan also hoped that he would have a smooth journey on the martial path. If he got a good ranking, it would be easier for him to be valued by the hall masters and elders. He might even be promoted to the inner sect. "Thank you, Senior Chu. Without you, I would have died long ago. How could I have such a result?" Su Hu said gratefully. He had always remembered Chu Fengyan's life-saving grace. "When I enter the school, if there's anything that Su Hu can do, please let me know." "All right." Chu Fengyan nodded. He didn't refuse. After all, Su Hu was indebted to Chu Fengyan. Since Su Hu wanted to repay his kindness, Chu Fengyan naturally wouldn't stop him. "It's my turn next." Ao Wuming asked impatiently as soon as Su Hu was done. As soon as Lin Maju finished, he wanted to step forward, but he was a little slow. He and Lin Maju had always been at loggerheads with each other. The two of them also wanted to compete in this time's sect entrance examination. Ao Wuming stepped forward and opened his storage bag. Dozens of monster cores rolled out. Ao Wuming was similar to Lin Maju. The demonic beasts he hunted were all demonic beasts at the 6th level of the body refinement stage and above. Looking at their numbers, they were not inferior to Lin Maju at all. The white-haired elder checked them one by one before speaking. 3,700 contribution points. 3,700 points. It was exactly the same number as Lin Maju's. Hearing this result, Ao Wuming and Lin Maju couldn't help but look at each other. They did not expect that the numbers would be exactly the same. The two of them were actually tied. The strength of these two people is really on par. 3,700 points. I wonder if anyone can surpass this number in this year's batch. The previous batch's newcomer king only had 2,900 points, not even 3,000 points. This time, there are two newcomers with 3,700 points in one batch. Looks like Wushang Academy is going to be lively for a while. Countless martial artists discussed among themselves. This was already an extremely terrifying number. Next, the white-haired elder spoke again. Although his tone was calm, there was an indescribable shock in it. This year's newcomers were indeed a little too strong. With so many monster cores, even some of the outer disciples might not be able to kill so many monster cores. With the strength that Lin Maju and Ao Wuming had displayed, it would not be a problem for them to enter the inner sect. Since senior brother Chu has no intention of going, junior sister will go first. Chu Wuyin glanced at Chu Fengyan. Seeing that Chu Fengyan was not in a hurry, she moved her feet and walked forward. She opened her storage bag, and more than 10 beast cores rolled out from it. These monster cores were the same as Lin Maju and Ao Wuming. They were all monster cores above the 6th level of the body tempering realm. Instead of hunting low-level demonic beasts, it would be easier to hunt high-level demonic beasts. After all, the result of the demonic beast hunting assessment was not based on the number, but the value. Therefore, the three of them adopted this strategy. However, compared to Lin Maju and Ao Wuming, the number of monster cores that Chu Wuyin had was obviously lower. 3,200 points. The white-haired elder calculated and said, 3,200 points. Although this number was not as high as Lin Maju and Ao Wuming, it was still an extremely shocking number. One should know that the previous batch's newcomer king only had 2,900 points. The current Chu Wuyin had already surpassed the previous batch's newcomer king. This result was also within Chu Fengyan's expectations. After all, Chu Wuyin's strength was still slightly weaker than Lin Maju and Ao Wuming. However, this number was already worthy of the reputation of the four great geniuses. After all, excluding the three of them, there were only slightly more than 10 people who could reach 1,000 points among the remaining martial artists. Moreover, only 3 people had reached 2,000 points. One of them was Su Hu, whom Chu Fengyan had met before. Su had previously shared many monster cores with Chu Fengyan. In addition to the ones that he had hunted later, it was enough for him to be ranked in the top 10 in this round. Was 3,700 points the limit? Many of the spectating martial artists were looking forward to it. If 3,700 points was the limit, it would be the highest number at least in the past 10 years. Only 15 years ago did a person like Ling Tian appear. Ling Tian was enough to be called the #1 genius in the victorious martial country in 100 years. It was said that he had reached 5,100 points in the second round of the assessment. This number was more than 1,000 points higher than the current Lin Maju and Ao Wuming. It was likely that no one would be able to break this probability within 100 years. I wonder if Chu Fengyan has a chance to challenge Ling Tian's record. Everyone's eyes were all on Chu Fengyan. Now, Lin Maju, Ao Wuming, and Chu Wuyin had all had their results. The only person who had a chance to surpass this number was Chu Fengyan. Although Chu Fengyan wasn't one of the four great geniuses, he was still able to defeat Chu Bei-ge. Even if many people thought that it was a fluke, they were still looking forward to his strength. It seems that it's my turn. Looking at everyone's eyes, Chu Fengyan's lips curled into a smile. Chapter 110. Chu Fengyan. Everyone's eyes were focused on Chu Fengyan. Now, the only thing left was Chu Fengyan, the dark horse. Chu Fengyan could surpass Ling Tian in the first test, the martial evaluation stone. Perhaps Chu Fengyan could really do it in the second test. It's actually him? Why isn't he dead? Hearing everyone's discussion, the white-haired elder finally noticed Chu Fengyan's existence. His eyes were filled with surprise. Chu Fengyan had offended the Chung family and family Chu. As far as he knew, the two great clans had already sent people to kill Chu Fengyan on this deserted island. But after 7 days, Chu Fengyan was still alive. This had greatly exceeded his expectations. The Chung clan and the Chu clan actually failed when they made a move. Although the white-haired old man was extremely surprised, His expression was still extremely calm. He watched Chu Fumian walk in and said flatly, "Take out all the monster cores." Chu Fumian's lips curled into a confident smile. He strode forward and opened a storage bag. Piles of monster cores rolled out from the storage bag. Whoosh! At a glance, the number of monster cores was no less than 200 to 300. So many monster cores. This number, is it really possible for a cultivator to kill? He didn't cheat, right? Some of the surrounding cultivators began to chat. The other cultivators who participated in the final test had killed less than 100 monster cores at most. Chu Fumian took out 200 to 300 monster cores in one go. On average, he would have killed more than 30 monster cores in a day. This number was definitely an astronomical figure. Not necessarily. Look at the grade of these monster cores. They're actually not high. A cultivator said in a deep voice. He noticed that the demon cores Chu Fumian took out were slightly uneven. Although it wasn't that there weren't any high-grade demon cores when compared to Lin Maju and A.O. Wuming. The demon cores they took out were all high-grade demon cores at the 6th level of the body refinement stage and above. Chu Fumian's monster cores were naturally inferior to theirs. The final score is also closely related to the grade of the Yao cores. No matter how many low-grade Yao cores you have, the contribution points you get won't necessarily be many. Hearing this warrior's explanation, many of the spirit masters came to a realization. After all, if Lin Maju, A.O. Wuming, and the others were allowed to hunt low-level monster beasts, the number would probably not be less than this. Although there were a lot of beast cores, their grades were not high. Their final score might not surpass Lin Maju and A.O. Wuming's 3,700 points. Yes, a total of 2,800 points. The white-haired elder said as he counted the monster cores. Not bad. With this number, you should be able to enter the top 5. 2,800. When the crowd heard this number, not many of them were surprised. Instead, most of them sighed. Of course, their expectations for Chu Fumian weren't just a little bit. In their eyes, even if Chu Fumian, a dark horse who had killed his way out of the first trial, couldn't compare to Ling Tian, Chu Fumian was still a dark horse. He had to surpass Lin Maju and A.O. Wuming. However, a number of 2,800 points was still inferior to the current 4 great geniuses. As expected, this kid was in the limelight in the first trial. In the second trial, he revealed his true colors. How can an outsider kid compete with true geniuses like the 4 great geniuses? This number is his true strength. Some of the warriors who were on good terms with the Chung family and family Chu looked at Chu Fumian and couldn't help but mock and ridicule him. Chu Fumian had always been regarded as this year's newcomer king. Many people even compared Chu Fumian to the Ji Ling Tian 15 years ago. Now, seeing that Chu Fumian's score was even inferior to Lin Maju and A.O. Wuming, these people all stood out and ridiculed him. An outsider. Does he really think he's a peerless genius and wants to compare himself to the Ji Ling Tian? This number isn't even enough to become the newcomer king in some of the weaker trials. A warrior from the family Chu's side branch sneered. This number seems to be a little too little. Lin Maju glanced at Chu Fumian and muttered to himself. The number of 2,800 points was much less than he had imagined. In his opinion, even if Chu Fumian couldn't beat them, it wouldn't be much less than them. Here's your identity card. Go to the side and wait. The white-haired elder took out an identity card and handed it to Chu Fumian. Wait, it's not over yet. Looking at the identity card handed over by the white-haired elder, Chu Fumian revealed a somewhat evil smile. What I just took out is only a portion. I'm afraid that the elder won't be able to count it clearly, so I took it out. As Chu Fumian spoke, he took out a storage pouch as if he was performing a magic trick. There's more? This kid actually has a storage pouch. Looking at Chu Fumian's actions, countless warriors around were speechless. The white-haired elder's mouth also twitched a little, afraid that he won't be able to count it clearly. As an invigilator, he didn't know how many monster cores he had counted. Was he afraid that he wouldn't be able to count it clearly? How many monster cores do you have? Take them out together. Don't waste time. No matter how many monster cores you have, I can count them clearly. The white-haired elder said proudly. Is that so? Then the elder will have to count them carefully. Chu Fengmian's eyes revealed a hint of a smile. He opened the storage pouch with one hand, and immediately piles of monster cores rolled out. This storage pouch was also filled to the brim. There seemed to be at least 200 or 300 monster cores. So this kid has so many monster cores that even a storage pouch can't hold them all? Many warriors sucked in a breath of cold air. Was it really possible for one person to hunt so many monster cores? Their surprise wasn't over yet. They saw Chu Fengmian take out another storage pouch as if he was performing a magic trick. Under the astonished eyes of the crowd, he opened the storage pouch, and immediately, countless monster cores rolled out. This storage pouch was also filled with monster cores. Countless monster cores were piled up on the ground, forming a small hill. This number was not necessarily less than the total number of monster cores of the previous warriors. It's over. There must be at least 700 or 800 of these monster cores, right? Some warriors said in surprise. Only then did they realize that the monster cores Chu Fengmian took out just now were just an appetizer. Chu Fengmian never let them down. Chapter 111. There were so many monster cores. Could it be that Chu Fengmian could break Zhi Lingtian's record? This was the first thought that popped into everyone's mind. Zhi Lingtian was the legend of Wuxing Academy. He was the undisputed #1 genius during the entrance examination. 15 years later, Zhi Lingtian was the #1 genius of Wuxing Academy, the #1 expert of the younger generation. He was a mythical figure. In many people's eyes, Zhi Lingtian's legend could not be broken before his death. However, Chu Fengmian's appearance was beyond everyone's imagination, especially when Chu Fengmian broke Zhi Lingtian's record in one fell swoop during the first test. Now, in the second test, Chu Fengmian had just taken out a storage bag with 2,800 monster cores. Now, Chu Fengmian took out 2 storage bags full of monster cores. This number might really be enough to surpass Zhi Lingtian. It's over. The white-haired elder stared blankly at the monster cores that Chu Fengmian poured out. After a long while, he spoke. Then I'll start counting. Is it over? There seems to be a little more. Chu Fengmian's face showed some doubt, as if he was thinking about something. He took out another storage bag. There's more? Seeing Chu Fengmian take out another storage bag, many martial artists' hearts were about to collapse. How many demonic beasts had Chu Fengmian killed? Could it be that he had killed all the demonic beasts on this island? There were so many monster cores. Even if they lined up for Chu Fengmian to kill, Chu Fengmian might not be able to kill all of them. Whoosh. The number of monster cores poured out this time was not many. There were only about 30 of them. However, this batch of monster cores was much larger than the ones that Chu Fengmian took out just now. The spiritual energy emitted from the monster cores was also of different levels. Countless martial artists were dumbfounded when they saw the monster cores that Chu Fengmian poured out. The scene was dead silent. Only the sound of people swallowing their saliva could be heard. These are all monster cores above the 7th level of the body, refining realm? A cultivator asked in a daze. The crowd finally reacted. These over 30 demonic cores were all demonic cores above the 7th level of the body, refinement stage. Among them, the largest ones had extremely pure spiritual energy. A peak body refinement realm Yao core. Chu Fengmian was actually able to kill a demonic beast at the peak of the body refinement realm. Elder, please do the inventory, Chu Fengmian said with a smile. This batch of monster cores was killed by Chu Fengmian himself. The rest of the monster cores were taken from the hands of the Green Alliance disciples. However, the demonic cores that Chu Fengmian had taken out were only a small portion. One had to know that Chu Fengmian alone had taken the demonic cores of nearly 200 martial artists from the Green Alliance. It was too much of a loss to give all of them to Wuxing Academy. Chu Fengmian planned to sell the rest for a good price in exchange for pills. I knew it. How could someone who could defeat me be so weak? The corners of Lin Maju's mouth curled into a smile. Only such a person could become a formidable opponent for Lin Maju and become the target of Lin Maju's pursuit. So many beast cores. Could it be that Chang Kong and the Qing Alliance were really killed by this brat? Ao Wuming looked at the demonic cores that Chu Fengmian took out, and a terrifying thought appeared in his mind. With his own strength, it was absolutely impossible to hunt so many monster cores. There is only one possibility to obtain so many monster cores. That was, Chu Fengmian had hunted down other warriors and snatched away their monster cores. Chu Fengmian and Cheng Kong had a grudge against the Green Alliance. There was no need to guess where Chu Fengmian's demonic cores came from. How many disciples of the Green Alliance have died at Chu Fengmian's hands? Ao Wuming shuddered as he looked at the demonic cores that Chu Fengmian took out. Such a young genius was actually so decisive in killing. It could even be said that he was ruthless and merciless. Provoking Chu Fengmian would most likely result in him being consigned to eternal damnation. Ao Wuming quickly thought to himself. No matter what, he could not provoke Chu Fengmian in the future. Although Chu Wuyin did not speak, the shock in her eyes was enough to express her thoughts. Cheng Kong, the second son of the Cheng family and the martial artist of the Green Alliance, were definitely killed by this brat. The white-haired elder looked at Chu Fengmian with a strange expression. Cheng Kong and the martial artists of the Green Alliance were all dead. Now that he saw Chu Fengmian take out so many demonic cores, he understood. It was definitely Chu Fengmian who killed the martial artists of the Green Alliance. Otherwise, it would be impossible to obtain so many demonic cores. Elder, please count them. Chu Fengmian's face was calm as he spoke again. All right. The white-haired elder heard Chu Fengmian's voice and calmed down. He had to continue with the test. The white-haired elder picked up the demonic cores one by one and calculated something. Normally, martial artists would only need about 5 minutes to calculate the result. However, it took a full hour for Chu Feng to arrive. This white-haired elder's brows were already dripping with sweat. Only then did he finally raise his head. With so many Yao cores, it was not an easy task to solidify all of them. The number of demonic cores had reached almost 1,000. This number was much more than the total number of demonic cores in the previous tests. A total of 13,000 contribution points. The white-haired elder announced loudly. 13,000 contribution points. When the crowd heard this number, their first reaction was to pinch themselves to make sure it was real. 13,000 contribution points. This number is more than double the record set by the highest Ling Tian. Is Chu Fengmian human? How can he have so many demonic cores? Countless martial artists discussed in disbelief. This number was simply too shocking. 3 of the 4 geniuses, Lin Maju, Ao Wuming, and Chu Wuyin, had killed fewer demonic beasts than Chu Fengmian. How is this possible? How can a martial artist kill so many demonic beasts in 7 days? The family Chu martial artist who was mocking Chu Fengmian earlier shouted loudly. Cheating! This kid must be cheating. He prepared a large number of demonic cores in advance. That's why there are so many of them. That's right, this kid must be cheating. Strip him of his qualification and expel him from the academy. The other Chu family and Cheng family's martial artists also began to shout loudly. The waves of voices were louder than the previous. You're tuning in to the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.